Hagmann and Hagmann report for today. It is Thursday, June 26, 2014. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son, Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann report. Folks, you're about to hear an incredible 3 hours of unbiased, uncensored news, information, analysis that you need to know. We believe that's important. We have spent the day combing through information, studiously combing through information, and coming up with a lot of information tonight. It's going to be just Joe and I tonight. Open lines as well. Your calls halfway through the show, 661-244-9839.
We're so far ahead of the game. It's actually Friday in our studio today.
You know how days have feels. It feels like, I've been off all week, but it feels like this was a Friday. I don't know if I should rejoice at having the extra day, or rejoice at having the extra day, or be bummed that my goodness, it's Thursday instead of Friday. But anyway, for the new listeners,
it's funny though, because I thought it was Friday too earlier today, and
how does that happen?
There's a restaurant around here on Fridays that serves this awesome fish dinner, and occasionally we'll get it. Well, today we're in the studio, and my dad says, "You hungry? You want a fish dinner?" I said, "Sure, sounds great." He called the place, and they had to tell him it wasn't Friday.
And talk about my embarrassment. I said, "Oh yeah, that's right. Today's Thursday." Huh? Anyway, it was. We don't even know what day it is, and you rely on us for the news. What's wrong with that picture? For the new listeners, we do broadcast every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Our home base on the internet is HomelandSecurityUS.com. I've just been working a lot too with a lot of articles, columns that I'm trying to get finished. I've got so much research that has been amassed, and the office here looks like someone tossed it. If you come in and look at it, I've got just papers everywhere. Anyway, I want to thank the Christians United Broadcasting Network in particular. Thank you so much. There you can tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for your deliberately tuning us in, as opposed to, just being on the car radio and getting out and listening 15 minutes or so. I think it was 12 and a half minutes the average talk show gets.
Now, is that so it registers as a listen, or is that just the average?
No, I think like Talkers Magazine, for the talk show hosts have a magazine. It's called Talkers Magazine, and
we do.
Not us, because we're not really talk show hosts, because we're just
we just blabble, so we don't talk really.
Right. But Talkers Magazine is an industry. Of course, anyone can subscribe to it, but it's an industry staple, and it's kind of like if you're a private investigator, PI Magazine. If you're a talk show host, Talkers Magazine. If you're, it's a trade publication. So I think at one point they did a survey, or at one point they disclosed that, for example, to register on the ratings, something like 12 minutes is the cutoff for a listener to be counted as a listener. What do you get out of 12 minutes?
Well, in New York City, it's probably closer to an hour. Here in our town, it's probably closer to 5 minutes wherever you got to go.
Yeah, and don't quote me on that. I mean, I don't know the exact. That's from memory. It's been some time that I've read that, but exactly. In New York City, it takes you an hour to get across the bridge, or
if you're lucky.
It's crazy. But a couple of announcements, folks, that you're going to want to take notice of. And we'll make these announcements again as new people join. But I think you're going to be very impressed with a couple of things.
The Hagmann and Hagmann report will be now 6 days a week. Starting this Saturday, we're going to start doing a series of shows every Saturday with a new guest host, Sheila Zielinski, as she is looking for a new place of radio homes. She's had issues with the network she was on, and the network she went to had more issues, and she's a great lady. She has great contacts and has guests on her show, and the least we can do is join forces and get together and try to do something special.
I've talked to her. I've known her for a while, and I talked to her in Montana face to face, and to sit down with her and to really get inside one's intellectual, find out where they are intellectually, look in their eyes, and just talk for into the night. I mean, my goodness, until we were both, almost perhaps dozing off, talking about the issues, what we need to do. Sheila Zielinski, the weekend vigilante. This is the weekend vigilante teaming up with the Hagmann and Hagmann report. It's a glove fit, and that's going to air every Saturday from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the weekend vigilante teaming up with the Hagmann and Hagmann report. Sheila Zielinski and Doug Hagmann, Joe Hagmann together, knocking it out of the park. The first guest, I believe, perhaps, this Saturday will be Deborah Tavares. That's going to be confirmed, but what has been confirmed is our joining of forces to expose this evil agenda, these evil bastards. I'm sorry, but and here's the other announcement that I want to get into, or I want to say as it kind of dovetails with this. Yeah, I used a bad word there, right?
No, I was going to say you just hate evil.
Yeah, I do.
You need some re-education, I believe. Looking at the society we live in today, that's not acceptable, and you can be probably jailed in the near future. So you might go saying how you say it.
Well, yeah, I've thought about it all day. And folks, I was contacted today by a family member of Irwin Schiff. I know he's got sons, Peter Schiff, you know him, and I'm not going to name drop, but Irwin Schiff is in prison right now. He's elderly, he's somewhat infirmed, and he's in prison. He received basically, he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison.
W's talked about him on recent appearances and has talked about his struggles, how the judge in his IRS case told him, we're not going to use the Constitution in this courtroom.
And Joe, you smacked it right out of the park with that. You're not going to use the Constitution in my courtroom. There is no justice for Irwin Schiff right now. He is a political prisoner in this country. Now, did you happen to see the exchange between John Koskinen and the IRS Commissioner John Koskinen? That weasel with that. Okay, I'm going to look. I've been in court settings, and Trey Gowdy had taken on, I think, Scott Young too.
Yeah, he's heading up the investigation from the Congress into the IRS scandal. Trey Gowdy. Trey Gowdy,
yeah. Unless I'm thinking of some sports figure, I don't know. But look. If you watch the exchange between Gowdy and this IRS commissioner, and if you could feel the hubris coming out of this man's pores, every pore, as he sat there, and and I've seen trials like this.
Is this the one where he said, "What were you going to do with that information?" Or what did you do with that information? When he's talking about the information that they already handed over, so allegedly, is that the same clip, or is there a new one?
Oh, there are so many new. This was on Before It's News. In fact, I would recommend Before It's News. I think it's still on there. If you just search, it has this neat thing that says warning. It's a graphic. The story's graphic. Well, it's not graphic. It's not. It was kind of a unique headline to present this image of this IRS commissioner being a weasel. Okay, a weasel, a lying weasel. And I apologize to the weasel family out there, the family of weasels. My apologies to all weasels throughout the world, but this IRS commissioner had the unmitigated gall to sit there and to smirk and to lie, to look into the cameras and lie, and the smirk on his face. You know something? If that had been, oh boy,
Why? Why would he have the audacity to do this?
Because
if this is a
he can't.
legitimate hearing. Exactly. He has no worry, fear of any type of justice or repercussions from.
He's got a free ride. There's no one that will question him. He's got the backing of the president. Lois Lerner and this piece of Lois Lerner and this bastard IRS commissioner should be rotting in jail, not Irwin Schiff.
Absolutely.
And put them all in jail. And get that guy and make Lois Lerner, well, she lawyered up and she pleaded the fifth. Explain to me how. Right. Okay, explain to me how anybody in America paying attention should even pay income tax right now. Explain to me, looking at this criminal conspiracy of the biggest magnitude. You explain to me how taxes should be collected and paid legitimately. How this?
Don't pop a blood vessel now. I know it's close. I can hear it beating, but I remember the baseball steroid scandal, and you had trainers of baseball players who wouldn't testify against the players, spent over a year in jail. But Lois Lerner, being in the position she's in,
a SWAT team, Lois. I mean, if anyone is in need of a SWAT team, it's Lois Lerner and this human debris of an IRS commissioner, 30 years, and they find out that he's been filling the coffers of these progressive candidates. I'm not even going to say Democrat. They're communists. He
even looks, and his mannerisms are like a weasel. Not to, I'm not making fun of him. Just the way he presents himself, the way he talks, or maybe it was just a hearing. But he seemed very snake-like.
I'm going to tell you something. I don't know how. Like if I was questioning him, I'd have to be handcuffed to the chair and probably duck down because there would be no way that I would accept that criminal hubris of this IRS committee. You know something? I would take the Nerf bat and I would beat the living snot out of this IRS commissioner with a Nerf bat. Okay. Or perhaps with
the blow dart gun.
Yeah, with of course I'm kidding. Okay, I'm not threatening any public official, so don't SWAT team me. But he, look, for this to go on, I'm through. Just to make it clear, okay, for anyone who caught this,
you're apologizing, asking not to be SWAT teamed, talking about a person who should be SWAT teamed.
I get the irony, but when you get a little bit emotional and you see the injustice, tell me where in this country is the venue remaining for justice? Where can you go in this country and get legitimate justice? Certainly not at the Congress.
Free justice, or no justice in Congress. I mean, if you want immunity, that's where you go. You go to an administration job, a government job. If you want power and to abuse that power, that's where you go. And you want to break the law and get away with it? Apparently, that is the place to be.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, as far as I'm concerned, this IRS commissioner should be behind bars with Lois Lerner, and this IRS commissioner should be somebody's boyfriend for the rest of his life. I'm being very serious about this.
I agree.
Look at how many businesses and how many families did this agency, this IRS agency, this all-powerful IRS agency destroy?
Yeah.
Folks, is there anyone out there with a business that has ever been audited or personally?
John Stossel did a great piece a while back on the bureaucracy, the growing bureaucracy, and the laws and regulations, and how everybody who's a citizen commits at least one felony a week unknowingly. And he talked, he gave examples of people who were being harassed by IRS and different government agencies for living in wetlands and not following certain ordinances. And you have people. Half the jails are full of people who don't pay local county jails, who don't pay child support and who don't pay fines, and that's okay apparently. But the lawlessness, we have Congress has less than a 9% approval rating. It even came out in a new poll that their approval rating has sunk even lower. The president's approval rating has sunk even lower. But what happens? Nothing. Nobody takes any action. If their approval rating was really as low as they say, they would be out on the Capitol steps because the people will go in there and take their Capitol back.
Well, perhaps we should just do that. And one day I have a feeling that's what's going to happen, because I could tell you this, my tolerance level has all but expired. My patience level has reached the end, and I'm just, at this point, how many more words do we need to speak? And
I know I'm sick of getting yelled at for what Lois Lerner did. Every day I come into the studio, I can imagine how you feel.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you something. Anyone who has been audited by this criminal organization, the IRS, knows the colonoscopy that you endure by these people, and they relish in this. And so for the IRS commissioner to sit back and you know what, I suppose what really bothers me the most is the smugness, the hubris, the you can't touch me, and pardon me, but F you attitude of this guy. If certainly if there was a jury trial, to me he would come off as somebody that would be guilty of something. And he's got the audacity to say that, well, he didn't know. I mean, how many lies?
What V said yesterday, talking about how these scandals are going to increase and continue, and they're doing so to keep attention off the economy. It makes sense to see how these people act. To know that it's just theater. It's like you're an actor in a movie. You get to act however you want, and who knows? They could say, go out there and pretend you're Jack Nicholson or Joe Pesci or whoever your favorite actor is. Take an attitude. Be scared or timid. I mean, who knows how it really works and how far the deception goes?
Yeah, that's very true, Joe. It's the levels of deception are multiple, and it's an incredible thing here. I'm looking at the case of Irwin Schiff, who, again, this is an elderly man who did nothing wrong. They broke no laws, who got an unfair trial, who was thrown in prison, and we'll get into this at some point in the future. And I'm very stoked about this, obviously, as you can tell, because barring any type of intervention or successful petition. There was a petition that was filed, by the way, or is in the process of being filed. I have a copy.
Oh, it wasn't all destroyed with the computers?
Well, no, a petition on behalf of Irwin Schiff. I have a copy of that. Okay. And what I will do is I will post that on our website as soon as I can get to it here, with a little kind of an explanation of what's going on. But the fact of the matter is, the IRS can break all the laws in the land. It's really an unlawful organization, and people will say, well, that's wrong. What about the 16th Amendment, et cetera, et cetera? They just don't know the legal aspects of things. They're not. It has nothing to do with that. Has nothing to do with the IRS and the current system of taxation. But having said all of that, and I'm not a Looney Tune, it's funny because Irwin Schiff, being the intellectual that he is, and knowing the tax code in and out, understanding the tax code, I look, he could, I'm sure, quote you the tax code backwards and forwards, and all of the laws and what have you. But the bottom line is he did nothing wrong. He did nothing. No, let me just say this: he did nothing illegal, nothing that should land him in jail. And just think of this: you're on trial, and it's a constitutional matter, and the judge says, "I'm not going to have the Constitution discussed in my courtroom."
When the law's on your side.
Yeah.
And for those who want a better understanding of the IRS tax laws and how manipulative they are, watch Aaron Russo's Freedom to Fascism movie. He interviews a former head of the IRS who they get into a debate about the voluntary compliance as it was worded in the law when that movie was made. And the guy who he interviews tries to justify it by saying stop lights in the middle of the night are voluntary compliance because who's around to see if you run the red light or not? And the circles that they run in to manipulate, to confuse, it's amazing. And you have the law on your side. You're not in the wrong. You go to court to defend yourself against a government who has the resources to come after you until you die.
Well, in the case of the IRS, notice how the IRS is the enforcement arm of the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. Notice that. You, folks, it's not by accident. What better army of thugs could you have than IRS agents? Oh boy, here come the audits, but bring it on. Okay, bring them on is all I got to say. If you want to audit us, bring them on because we got. You're not going to find anything.
I've been audited every year. I don't want. I'm kidding.
No, I'll tell you, I was audited one time, and I spent I think 3 days, 8 hours a day, attempting to prove. See how it works is they ask you questions, and you've got to you are guilty. In other words, let's say you claim $1,000 exemption because or $1,000 expense. I'm just going to use that as an example that you went to you attended a continuing education course. In fact, and I remember this is 15 years ago now. I was audited, and boy, how it sticks in my memory. But no longer than that. It was 1993. So however long that is. But anyway, the auditor said, and I remember this like it was yesterday. She looked at me and she said, "You put down here $1,000 for a continuing education class," which I lowballed it because that was the cost of the course, and then I had my expenses associated with that. And I said, "Yeah, that's correct." She said, "Prove it." And I said, "Well,
you prove I didn't."
Well,
but the burden of proof is
yeah. But even more than that, the insanity behind this, and it's becoming more and more aggressive now with what we're seeing today.
The Obamacare.
But going back to Lois Lerner and the IRS commissioner, what they did, folks, you've got to understand what they did. By their actions, they influenced. They in reality influenced the election. I
would agree.
Right.
But what would that influence have over a vote that is tainted anyway?
Well, okay. So if you're going to go that route, then throw up your hands and say,
no,
heck with everything, right?
I'm just saying.
I understand
to
it.
To a degree,
but again,
yes, you're right.
At what point does we step in and say we demand justice? At what point do we say enough is enough? Lois Lerner sat on applications for 501c4s, C3s, any type of conservative cause. She sat on those. Okay, she's just merely the front person. W calls her the firewall, one of the firewalls. She's just the stooge, but out there, the visible stooge behind the people that are occupying the White House right now. But she's a criminal stooge because she engaged in criminality. And don't tell me, as an investigator, if you're going to come to me and say, "Gee, guess what? The information that you wanted, it's gone. Sorry, unfortunate hard drive accident." Are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Who in the hell is going to believe this? Who in their right mind would believe this story? Are you kidding me? IRS, the email is just sorry, the hard drive's crashed, and we did. Oh, we had, by the way, not just one hard drive, a whole bunch.
They spontaneously combust.
Yeah, well, and then of course they cancel the contract. They cancel their contract with that email or the company that saves the stuff. And then of course, what do? They destroy the hard drives. Exfoliation of evidence is what Gowdy was accusing the IRS commissioner of, and that basically means, well, taking evidence that would prove guilt or innocence, or taking I shouldn't say that, taking
what's the saying
evidence.
you used to say? The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, or
absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but to apply here, and I got a feeling that we're going to be getting okay, this is good. Watch for who on what, right? Okay, thank you. Bring him on, because I'm out of control, and I'm not being articulate.
Well, what else is new?
Okay, but the fact of the matter is, no, I'm serious.
You set yourself up for that.
Yeah, I know I did. But if it would have been you or me or any one of our listeners out there who would be in the position of attempting to bring him on when he does, because all right, let's bring him on, and you know what? I got to stop talking, because I'm going to there's going to be blood on all the walls in the studio.
We don't even know what day it is over here. You're right. We need W to come in and clear things up.
Look, man, I don't know what you did to me earlier, but someone spiked my drink. I think, I don't know, my coffee. Decaf, right, brother?
I couldn't stay away any longer. I had to dive in for a half a second there anyway. The one thing I want to say is, we know what happened to the hard drives and what happened to Lois Lerner's hard drives, and a lot of people don't remember the history. But we had a contractor that came in that was going to, and you might remember this all the way back to the Reagan administration, they were going to rebuild the computer system for the IRS. And so they came up with this plan, and they start to institute it, and they spend billions and billions of dollars and getting the tax code all entered in and getting it working. And the only problem is, see, a computer uses a logic system in order to take information and categorize it, file it, reference it, communicate from one area to another, and have it all come out and make sense at the other end. And the problem was, when they entered the tax code into the computer, they couldn't get the computer to pop out stuff at the other end. It just would get more and more, locked up. That's because the tax code doesn't make any sense. It's illogical. Okay, they couldn't get it to work. So then they decided, well, we can fix that like any typical government program, but just throw more money at it. So they come up with a new computer system, new and improved, 99 and 44, 100% pure, and this thing's going to fix the problem. They just didn't have a complex enough computer system. They needed a more expensive version, so they rebuild the whole thing, do the whole thing, get it all plugged in, programmed, etc. Didn't work either. The computer systems they're using over at the IRS are 30 years old. They're prehistoric, because those computer systems, they can't make sense of the code, because the code isn't intended to make sense. It's by design opaque and difficult, so that they can decide that it says whatever they want to say it says any given moment of the day. I'll decide who's right or wrong in this, and what the Constitution is or isn't in the code. That's the whole point here. It's not logical. It doesn't compute. And when we look at Lois Lerner's emails and everything else, it doesn't compute because it's illogical, because it's wrong. Everything that they're saying, they melted down the system because of all the lies. The lies were so red hot, the system melted down. I mean, what more can you say? There's no further explanation needed. I don't believe that they sabotaged the system. They just said their truth, their lying truth, and the system couldn't take it. Even the computers couldn't kill Goliath any longer. The computers exploded. The computers couldn't kill Goliath any longer. Come on.
Oh my gosh.
What consequences?
Anybody thinks I don't know what I'm talking about. Excuse me. The Bible's like 1,400 pages. The tax code was 14,000 pages. It's the late 80s. It's kind of like with the Health Care Act and everything else. It's like 140,000 pages now. And excuse me, anybody that actually works for the IRS or works in the system or is going to work on the healthcare thing, hello, we're going to have like rubber walls with fire hoses. You can just spray all the exploded brains off the walls because anybody that's working it, trying to make sense of it, their brains are going to explode. It's impossible. I wouldn't go to work for IRS. Your brain's going to explode. That's what you got to. They should have like they have on the cigarette pack, warning. This could cause, working in the system can cause your brain to explode. It should be a warning label for anybody trying to take a job in this new and improved computerized system. It's never going to work. They knew that to begin with. It's designed to fail. That's the whole point here.
That's an important point. It is.
Is this the cover up just for extended show or theater?
Well, at this point in time, we have, this is a target-rich environment. Everywhere you look, there's a disaster that any given one could cause the whole system to come down. And as I mentioned the other day on the show, see, when you have problems in any market, in any system, we tend to call them bubbles because we allow them to fester and grow and turn into a boil of some immense proportions. But the problem is if you reach a toppy point where the bubble's about to burst, if it does burst as opposed to just be drained slowly, you got a huge mess. And so we have all these markets, whether it's the mortgage market or the dollar situation, the financial paper, the monetary instruments that all of this stuff is built on, healthcare thing that's being allowed to just be turned into an absolute nightmare, and the implication in the economy. The reason the economy didn't grow in the first quarter of this year, and the reason it's not going to show growth in the second quarter or the third or the fourth or the next year is because of the healthcare law. Anybody that doesn't admit that isn't in the real world. Everybody in industry knows that. Some of the biggest leaders of industry in the United States today have come forward and told us all they will not be growing and their income of their employees is going to go down because of one thing and one thing only, the Health Care Act. It's a knife in the kidneys of the American people. And it's so painful.
Well, wait a second. Wait a second.
Even
Judge Roberts, Supreme Court Justice Roberts, is a genius for being the deciding.
Paid for Roberts. Yeah, bought and paid for Roberts.
Oh, no.
He got blackmail on everybody.
And W, I want to say this. You came on the show, about a week ago after the Montana conference. We got back from that.
Yeah.
And you talked about a code that you saw in the metals market that indicated to you that the dollar is going to start to be devalued. I just wanted to tell you that I
no, that's not what I said.
that.
No, hold on, Doug.
Okay.
Joe, you've got to say it correctly. That is not what I said. Code that came through, and just for anybody that has heard a piece or didn't quite understand what was said, there were private codes that were used for communication purposes, and those codes on certain trades in certain markets, when we were doing stuff that we did back when we were going after the ruble, if we were piggybacking on something to come up with money that was off the books, we didn't have to go ask Congress for. And we had the backdoor key codes to financial markets in banking and other places. And so we would see a trade, and we could slow that trade down and get a couple of minutes to do something to come up with some cash out of it, and create another trade that would parallel it or anticipate it and make a little money here and there, and we'd have money that nobody else knew about. And so we had done some trades that interfered with other trades that were going on by how we did it. And so we were clued in, and there wasn't a bunch of it. There's only half a dozen of us that even were in that realm. I mean, we're talking a very narrow realm of rarefied air where we were operating. And so when we were brought in the loop, okay, look, if you see these certain things, you can't touch those trades, and you can't have anything to do with them, and you need to walk away, go to the next one. And so over time, we were brought in the loop on a number of different places where there were trades and the codes, and they were fairly complex. They weren't simple. Over the years, although I haven't used those for my own purposes because I didn't feel that it was appropriate, I have monitored where there have been markets and kept track of it, and I have the records. So anybody wants to argue with me, I've got them, and I don't think anybody wants me releasing what I know. But the point is, those transactions were signaling between players, almost like somebody.
Wow. I've never. Okay, W, if you're talking, just stop because it's coming through as chipmunk noises, and I don't think you're talking still. So I'm going to mute you and bring you back down.
Folks, what you heard there, in my view, and I'm not one to jump on this bandwagon, is intentional distortion.
You there, W?
W, you back, buddy? I'm serious.
He'll come back.
Okay. What he's talking about is so critical.
Yeah.
It's absolutely so critical. He's giving, really, as Steve said, the Rosetta Stone.
And what I wanted to say to him, and I'll tell him on the other side when he's done explaining it, is that he mentioned a date of when this is going to happen, when people need to start moving to other currencies and commodities to stay away from the shifting and eroding value of the dollar. Well, that is all 100% true. Not that I doubted him, but to do the research for yourself and to find the answers for yourself is always something that you want to do, and it's always something I want to do. Well, through reading IMF policy documents, I found exactly what they said, what he said they were going to do and are doing.
Well, what you found was the outline or the game plan.
Yeah.
What he found
was the
method.
Yeah, and the warning mechanism to others to understand what is going on. But if people don't go through and read these 200-page IMF documents or know these codes, then what chance do you have?
Yeah.
Except if it weren't for people like W who had the information and is not afraid to go public with it.
Well, yeah, and let me tell you something. In our personal meetings, I've seen things that in his possession, I can guarantee you, folks, that I'm not making this up either. That
I'm laughing because I know what you're talking about.
Well,
I think one
of the things you do know, but
not even from Earth.
Yeah. And some of the things I've seen that if he went public with, he would, oh my, I just don't even know how to describe it. You can't unsee something, I just don't even know how to describe. And I'm not trying to be stupid here and dramatic. I'm just saying that I can't say anything. I just can't because it's an insurance policy. That's all it is. I mean, that's why he's not dead, period. And it's not something to laugh at or to take light and make light of. It's what he's not. And seriously, conversation earlier today, Alan, and W, if you're still listening, call back. The British had messed with your signal, but
maybe his phone got fried again.
Well, that could very well be. I'll be having to send them more phones, right? But the fact is, what was I just talking about?
The things that are in his possession that can't be discussed.
Well, yeah.
And the reasons, yeah.
Okay, however, but I was going somewhere with this. The Alan B. West. Alan B. West had written an expose about Benghazi. Folks, did you see that? It was dated, I think, the 24th of June. If you take Alan B. West, what he wrote about Benghazi, and you compare it to, I don't know, my earliest writings about Benghazi, our earliest programs about Benghazi, or even what Michael Reagan had written in The American Thinker, Building on the Kernel of Truth, Michael Reagan being Ronald Reagan's son, they're identical, with the exception of the Operation Zero footprint being identified by name. It doesn't matter what it was called. And there are certain things, too, that you don't release, although you know them, you don't release to the public. In other words, as long as the information is out there and you hold back, for example, the name of the operation.
It's like a murder. They hold back information intentionally to see if there's a leak that comes out, to see who knows that information that's held back. Obviously, that person is more involved in what they're leading on. If they're trying to hide something, there's a lot of reasons that information is held back. Legitimate reason.
Exactly, and I remember. I believe it was Alfred Hitchcock who. There was a guy going around murdering. He was a serial killer, and this is a fictional tale. Of course, Alfred Hitchcock back in the early '60s, mid '60s, where a man was going around. He was a serial killer, killing people. But as he did that, he would walk into the police station and confess to the murder and every murder that took place. But always gave, like, for example, if the murderer's signature, let's say the murderer cut the guy's ear off, he would say something like, he would give the wrong signature, like in other words,
in the toe, or
something bizarre like that. And pretty soon, when his associates or his friends or people around him said, "Look, I think this guy's a killer," the cops would blow off the people trying to turn him in. Think about that for a minute. Just let that sink in for a moment. Hopefully I explained that properly.
I think you did.
Okay, so you see the evil genius in that. So among us, we have, in my estimation, the equivalent of the serial killers, although they're doing it on a national and international level. And you've got the games that they play, the Satanistic games that they play, not confessing to things, but certainly giving this wrong information, especially to the American public and to the anyone who gives a darn in Congress. Well, it's a game to them. It was a game to this guy on Alfred Hitchcock, of course, but it's a game to them. It's something that they relish in. They revel in this evil. And just like the tax code, evil that has no reason. And I think the biggest thing too, and I'll close with this: the biggest thing that I had to really understand, or the hardest part I had to understand, because normal people like us, like everyone listening to this, our minds are not wired this way. But think about the people who could kill without any type of remorse. Human beings, okay? Just try to understand that, and have no qualms about like killing a child. That's evil. That is as evil as you can get. Can you understand that? I can't. Can you comprehend evil for this? Evil. Is there any reason or logic to evil, to pure evil? There is not. So that's the biggest thing I believe that we all have to look at. What we're witnessing today is the unleashing of pure evil. Think about the crucifixions and beheadings that are going on in Syria right now, or in Iraq. by ISIS. Pure evil. Pure evil.
No, that's religious cleansing.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, the terminology, the excuses and justifications that people come up with in order to cover up the horrendous acts of people, the evil acts of people.
Well, yeah. And we among other nations are supporting this. But Benghazi, see, and here's the thing too, folks, a kernel of hope instead of a kernel of truth. Let's build on a kernel of hope. It's my understanding, based on information I got today, that people now across this country are getting it. We got them back. Oh my gosh, what happened? Did they fry your phone again?
I don't know. Alien attack, whatever. I don't know where I lost yet. So
it was. I could tell you lost us that. But it just went. You know. So
you were then explaining how you came about.
Yeah, you were given the Rosetta Stone of the code. I mean, and then everything
right
went.
In the meat.
Yeah, as soon as you started explaining exactly how you saw this or you discovered this, it went crazy.
Well, we'll see if we get to this time. We'll try again.
Okay.
Look, back when we took out the ruble, we had transactions we did where we piggybacked on other transactions. We had the backdoor to financial transactions, and we were able to get money from that we were able to use, that we didn't have to go ask anybody for. It didn't show up on a book, with a congressman looking at it or somebody else. That was somebody else's budget. We just piggybacked in and we got money. And in the course of doing that, though, a few times we had done transactions that we piggybacked on that interfered with transactions that were not things that we should have interfered with, that were sacrosanct, if you will, sacred cows, whatever. So we were brought in the loop, and then we're not talking a bunch of guys, we're talking half a dozen guys, that we had to avoid transactions that had certain coding in them, and that coding had existed prior to us showing up, because it was coding used between these insider family players. And so we were brought up to speed on the coding that we had to, if we saw it, we had to avoid those transactions. We didn't piggyback on them or interfere with them in any way. And so subsequent to work that we did in the late 80s, I have continued to monitor transactions looking for those code numbers that are in the public view. You have to have a key code. If you don't know the key code, you're not getting there. And it's not a simple code. It's actually fairly complex. And so even though the initial numbers are simple, the rest of the way you got to look for and what you got to know to look for are fairly complex. So I've monitored markets over the decades since. I'm kind of surprised that the codes haven't gone away, but it would be kind of complex to change them and difficult to orient things. So, there's a lot of players involved, probably under 100 total. And I've seen it in lots of markets, for example, coffee and sugar, wheat, commodities, certain financial instruments, bonds, things like that. And out of interest, because it affects the geopolitics, it tells me who's doing what or what might be a move that's about to happen. And I've monitored it in that way for all this time. Well, silver has been absolutely dead for decades. And I'd only previously, I think one time, seen something in silver, and it's just vague to me. I just haven't seen it there. You see it in gold frequently and like that, but I haven't seen it in silver. And out of the blue, after that May 2nd show, I'd seen a code. I said, told me I need to look for code. I went back and looked, oh my gosh. And even though I went back over a couple of years, checked other years, going back, I hadn't seen anything else. It was the only time it showed up. I let you know, and on the following Monday, they had this VIX silver price setting table was announced it was being closed, and anybody that was paying attention or wasn't paying attention prior to that knew to go back and pay attention of the groups. This was a big announcement. And subsequent, there was a couple more times that codes came through related to other aspects of silver trades, the paper trades and the mining stuff. Told me that all the players are in, and they're in at all the different levels. This is the market they haven't been involved in, forever. All of a sudden, suddenly they're going to jump into it, and they've got a post time of July 15th. My main concern for most of your listeners is it's not the end of the world, and this isn't like you're going to dive into silver and make $1 bazillion. They're going to do a lot of trades and run that silver price around. It just tells you they're entering that market. At the end of the day, the price on the silver is probably going to go up relatively dramatically, but it's going to have a lot of gyrations on the way up, and they've got plans. Silver is the transformational metal, which this is transformational president. Silver carries the current better than any other metal, and so you use it on silver contacts and connectors and things in the electronics. Well, for carrying energy in a society, and these people are very much into imagery, very much into metaphors. They will use things that have value, metaphorical value. It's like casting spells and getting just the right, eye of newt into your cauldron as you're mixing it up. And so what you use and when you use it and how you use it is very critical, the timing, getting the concoction just right. So using silver at this point in time has a lot of metaphorical meaning to what they intend to do. And for our purposes, if you have silver, silver is a natural disinfectant. If you've got cankerous sores in your financial portfolio, then you need some silver to heal it.
Interesting way to put that. Did we lose him again?
He's lost.
Isn't that interesting, folks? Again, although the wireless connection that you hear sounds tenuous, we've never had a problem, or I haven't had a problem with this before.
Yes, we have. He drops off occasionally.
Well, yeah, but not like
this.
No. So, and folks, we can take you back to April 5th, May 2nd, when these codes were actually discovered. So it's my understanding, based on lengthy conversations with him, that the move is going to be out of paper into the actual physical, that being silver. Okay, and what that means, which dovetails with what you said, Joe, is the ultimate killing of the dollar. But that is going to be a process, not a trigger event, or not. It's not going to happen overnight necessarily, according to the plans that have been revealed or discovered. I shouldn't say revealed, but discovered. So. Okay. So
and we do have W back, and I just want to let folks know that when we get into we're going to get into some of this stuff that I found. I have audio clips. I have the documents. And,
right.
All right, we got W back, but we're going to explain what we're talking about a little bit more.
Just adjust your rabbit ears there, buddy.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I guess remember when they were talking about the satellite program going out and capturing all the information and they're screening all the calls across the world, and they're looking for anybody, talking about terrorism or drug talk. And so Art Bell does the thing where he goes on the thing and he watches he has a meter that's measuring the current in the phone line, and he would say cocaine.
I remember that. Yep.
all of the computers come on, and because obviously it's kicking the computers over to have screeners listening to his call and checking it out to see what's going on. So, I don't know. Silver.
Cocaine, bomb. Yeah, anyone can buy an impedance meter for their phone, and it's interesting. Okay.
Anyway, I won't bore your listeners anymore. I mean, we've talked about it. Go back and listen to the show we did. I did last week on this. I just it is an important thing. There's changes coming. My main concern is I don't want people panicking or running around like a chicken with their head chopped off. You gotta have your wits about you. It means that change is afoot, and that these players intend, as part of what they're doing, to use that specific market where they haven't been using it for, as far as I can remember, back 30 years. They're going to be using that market for some of what they have ahead, and no doubt running the price up, but there'll be a lot of gyrations on the way up. If you're trying to, time it in and out day by day and watching the price day by day, then you're probably wasting your time unless you really know what you're doing. But if you're trying to protect your power with currency or something that has value down the road as the dollar goes through what it's going to be going through, then you're probably going to do just fine. That's what you have to do. And there's certain strategies that will work, and there's other strategies that, while they might work, they might be a little less effective. And that's where I've given a couple of players, be included, some of the understanding so they can give you the right advice. Probably for most people, just pre-65 coins is a great deal if you're just a small investor. You got real wealth, but if you're somebody of more means, then there's other plays that can make a lot of sense, and they're more complex, person-to-person type stuff. Ultimately, though, my main concern is that every person's situation is different. If anybody's looking for one magic bullet that fits everybody, that probably doesn't exist. You've got to be, ask God for direction. He'll tell you. He'll give you. Your situation is different than mine. It's different than your own relatives and kids. So you need to ask for specific guidance for you, divine guidance, what you're supposed to do, and not be looking for it from other people necessarily. You can take it under advisement, but at the end of the day, you need to have some divine assistance to come up with the right plan for yourself. The main thing is like what Steve was saying yesterday. You need to be aware that trouble is coming and get serious about how can I get out of the way and buy some time. And a lot of it is, it's not that you're going to avoid all problems or disaster. It's about having a understanding that at least in the early phases, there's going to be horrible disruption that probably will last 30, 60, 90 days. At the very end, you got a little time till we get there, but every day you wait, it's going to get more difficult to get out of the way. And so those that make the move earlier do a lot better. Now, when I first mentioned this, I did John B's show and about a month before I did your show. From then, within days of that show and days of the show, the next day of the show that we did last week, silver moved, substantially, a couple of points, now is held a little bit higher. I expect it to have one more downturn before mid-July, but there's no guarantee of that. And then probably start moving up more radically as we get into the fall. And but even if somebody had done something a week ago, they'd have made pretty good money on a pretty simple investment. So but silver's not the only thing. There's other markets that are affected by it, having to do with things of real substance, commodities, etc. All you got to do is look at food prices, and you realize, oh my gosh, this thing is moving radically. So we are on the cusp of something fairly dramatic. But I'll talk about some of this next week when I come on. I'm doing next Thursday show with you there.
Yeah.
But, one thing that I will say is, go ahead.
Yeah, no, why don't you go ahead and finish your thought, and then give us a teaser for next week.
Well, I think I said everything I needed to say. I mean, I don't want to, bore the audience.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is that don't worry about listening next week. I'm not talking to everybody. I'm talking to a handful of people. If you're one of the people that God told you to listen, well, fine. Most everybody else is going somewhere for 4th of July. It's the day before 4th of July, next Thursday. So relax, go enjoy life, and have a good time. I'll talk to a handful of people that show up, and the rest of you probably won't miss anything. I'm really, it's just a, kind of a private conversation. So I recommend to most of you that you don't listen, because I'm probably going to upset somebody. And it's not for everybody. So don't really, actually, if you enjoyed any of the other shows I did, don't listen next Thursday, because I'm not talking to you. And unless you, had, chili the night before or something upset your stomach and, need to be more upset, then probably listen to me next Thursday. And the rest of you, please don't. Don't let your kids listen. Don't let your wife listen. Don't let your husband listen, because they're both going to get upset, and just don't listen. So don't show up next Thursday unless you've got, something happened to your brain and it got cooked somehow. But I was going to tell you one funny thing before I let you go, though, when you talk about the IRS, because that's where I came in. So I had a particular situation that happened many, many decades ago, and I'm in the IRS's offices. In the middle of an incredibly intense, excruciating audit that was brought on for political reasons. And I've got my attorney and my accountant in there with me. And I'm mad as hell. You just can't imagine that I'm even there, but I'm being fairly relaxed. It was, and I'm, just absolutely kicking butt. But we get to this one very tense moment. It's probably the most tense moment of the entire audit process. And while we're having this discussion about some certain things, some documents had been misappropriated and were in the IRS's hands that they had no legal authority to have, amongst other things. And I'm making inquiries about it. And over the sound system inside the offices, at this critical moment, comes the announcement from the girl at the front desk. The Bloodmobile will be present at the front of the building near the lobby for the remainder of the day. Anyone wishing to give blood, please notify personnel so that we can add your name to the list. And I thought about it for a second. I thought, I'm at the IRS, and they're asking for blood donors. I let out a big laugh, and after a few seconds, the whole office was laughing because it was just hysterical. You couldn't have picked the timing or the location any better. And it just was hysterical to me that here we are. What, I didn't give enough already?
I'm surprised they weren't harvesting organs at the time as well.
Well, no, that's the new Obamacare plan. Now they won't have a bloodmobile. They'll have an organ donation center.
Oh, my gosh.
At the front of the building.
All right, brother. Well, I'll tell you what. Anything you want to, because I was so very inarticulate about the IRS commissioner. I was pretty enraged
well, let me
by
just
what
add
I
this
saw.
one thing. Since you asked, let me just add this one thing. So what's the other thing that happened with Lois Lerner? So she mysteriously, inexplicably, unbelievably, accidentally gets an invitation, I believe it was for Senator Grassley, Republican, for him to come speak and be present at a fundraiser of some sort. And in the letter, it also says that if needed, they would cover the cost or the expense of his wife to attend with him. And so of all that your mail would accidentally go to as a senator, do you really think it would go to the director of the IRS, really seriously, to her personally? And so what was really going on? It was a setup. Somebody had sent this directly to her accidentally. And then what was her first response? Oh, hey, I've accidentally got a piece of mail to the senator. I better not open it. So she does open it, and then she sees this stuff. And then instead of saying, oh, well, we're going to get this over to the senator, who she send it to? She sends it over to the legal department with the instruction, I need to have someone look into this and see if there's any illegality that's occurred here, because the senator was offered that his wife could have her costs to attend the speaking engagement covered by the people that were making the invitation. Well, it was an invitation. It wasn't even an acceptance. There wasn't anything done. She didn't even know how he filed, whatever was done. The legal department correctly identified that there was no there there, and that there was no, nothing that they should do. But she didn't even waste a breath wondering that it shouldn't go to legal and that there shouldn't be investigative activity. Why? Because it was a setup to begin with. They were going to try and intimidate the senator. It was all a ruse. This doesn't happen except in Hollywood and Washington. And we're expected that this was just an accidental thing and the mail accident went there, and then she was just going to, ask for an investigation of the senator and how his fundraising stuff is going. That's BS. We got to grow up and stop being naive. We're being attacked at every level. Individuals, conservatives, the Tea Party, all this. This administration is completely out of control, and the people that are running them. They're out of control, beyond belief. So, but only if people get truly irate and pissed off are we going to get anywhere to get this under control. And I don't really know that people are either, irate enough or paying attention enough, because they're so bogged down just trying to stay alive, keep their families fed. And that's part of the strategy. Keep you chasing your tail until they've completed everything that they've got in mind to do. Worried about your health care, worried about, getting the rent paid, worried about, keeping the car running and getting kids to soccer practice on time, and while you're racing to do all that, these guys are doing more mischief every hour. And now with the restraints off, they're coming after us not with 1 or 2 or 5 investigations of different things, but we got 30 going on. Any one of which would take down any administration in a normal world.
That's very true.
Any one of them. And you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. We're getting the whirlwind. This is very serious time. And the real problem is, while we're trying to get control of all these different things, our dollar is being frittered away. The one thing that you and I talked about the other day, Doug, and I'll talk about this more next week, but if you say that this is a Manchurian candidate that got into office, that somebody put him in office or put people around him in office and got him in there, and you say, well, we're like Rome and everything else. Well, it's the same players in Rome as they were burning Rome down. They got Nero into office.
Right.
What did he do? Nero is Caesar. Nero didn't get there on his own. Nero was put there by the same players. And then Nero burns Rome down, supposedly to rebuild Rome. Well, Rome was never actually rebuilt. They burned Rome down because they were moving to London. And they didn't want a threat from the old empire. So they put a guy in there to burn it down, baby, so that they're not being threatened with their latest new and improved operation. And for those people that think London's going to be the center of the planet after this is all over, no, you don't understand. They're going to burn London down, too. They're going to burn it all down. At the end of the day, we're the straw man. They're going to take the rest of the heat. And then where are these guys going? They're going to turn the northern hemisphere to glass. They're going to the other side of the planet. They don't have plans for you, except there is no plan for you. You're not part of their plans. They're not keeping you. They're not keeping you around. Everybody keeps thinking, well, they got to have the dollar. They got to have American industry. They got to have American ingenuity. You kidding me? Wake up. Anyway, we'll talk next week.
Wow. All right, buddy.
I hope everybody else just go enjoy 4th of July. I'm not, I'm only talking to a handful of people. The rest of you, please, just go away. I'm only going to talk to a handful of people. I don't want to talk to everybody, and I don't want to hear about it. The ones that are supposed to be there will be there, and the rest of them, go enjoy the weekend and, relax. Enjoy the fireworks.
Yeah. Your message will only, and I predict this, that your message next week, next Thursday, July 3rd, a week from today, will be really, if 12 people, if a dozen people actually comprehend it and fully understand what you're going to be talking about, then to me, mission accomplished. So you know what? If you're not one of the dozen or so
those 12
people,
will be important. The only thing I'll say is this. I'll give you this one teaser. Okay, remember there was the visitation of the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future? Yeah, well, I'll have the ghost of July past, the ghost of July 4th present.
Oh, we just lost him again.
wow.
Wait, no, he's still on there. I don't know, W, if you can hear me.
And the ghost of July 4th future is what he was going to say.
There he dropped off.
Very interesting. I got to tell you, folks, next Thursday is going to be a very interesting broadcast, and that's next Thursday. And by the way, we will be broadcasting live on July 4th, 2014. So, just take us out by your barbecue grills, by your family reunions or get-togethers, and of course, you guys can be made to, or you guys can take the heat for what you're listening to, I suppose. But we're gonna. It's actually an hour and 15 minutes. 15 minutes late for the break.
Hour number 2 of the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this Thursday, June 26, 2014. We had a very interesting and extended first hour. W joined us for a little bit, and he kept having dropping off, which figures as he was talking about important subject matters. But either way, we're back, and we are going to get into more of what we were discussing in the first hour and some other news. But first, I'm going to hand it back to my dad as he has something he wants to say.
Yeah, I just got an email here from Rhonda C. Thank you very much, Rhonda. And by the way, I do read all my emails. I can't respond to everyone. I do read them all. And I want to thank you very much for everyone. But Rhonda C. said, in the same world, there's really no excuse for not having the emails. Emails reside on a server. So even if they did destroy every hard drive on the planet, when you get a new one and log into the network, the emails are still there. Additionally, the NSA has every email from everyone. Do they not? That is true. That is true. It's a long discussion to describe how that works, but yes, it's true. But here's the crux here's the main point that I really want to touch on, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you, Joe. She writes, it infuriates me to listen to the mainstream media and even those congressmen. They show all this anger, but continue to perpetuate the hard drive narrative. Okay, now, I'm going to stop right there. This is about the IRS situation. I was going to call it something else, and wow. Okay, this is about the IRS situation, the criminality of the IRS. This is about the criminal Lois Lerner and the criminal IRS commissioner, whose smug face is an affront to everyone who's ever paid taxes in America. But here's where, Rhonda, here's something that I think that people need to pick up on and people need to understand. Benghazi, you're right about the hard drive narrative. They continue to perpetuate this official story about the hard drive. Oh, it's all about the hard drive. This is the same. Have you noticed, ladies and gentlemen? This is the exact same template that these very same people are using about Benghazi. It's all about security. Don't tell me for 1 minute Benghazi had anything to do with security. with diplomatic security. It had nothing to do with diplomatic security. Folks, if you haven't listened to the Monday show with Kevin Shipp, a guy, a CIA officer, understand, there are different types of CIA. When you're in the CIA, different officers, agents, operatives, so on and so forth, okay? Now, this is a highly decorated man with the CIA, also on the Citizens Commission for Benghazi, but not speaking for them. Please understand that. That's important. It's a critical distinction. He's speaking on his own, Kevin Shipp. He's an author from the Company of Shadows. The CIA put his family through hell, threw him through hell. He's a highly decorated and very patriotic, very constitutional man, and a very godly man. But folks, he knows, and as we have said, Benghazi was never about security. So anytime you hear on the radio or the news, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Bill O'Reilly or Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh or Mark Levin or Glenn Beck or anybody. I don't care if the word or if the phrase diplomatic security comes out of their mouths. They're either being intentionally deceptive or they haven't got a clue. And I can't believe it's the latter. I suspect it's the former. This has nothing to do with diplomatic security. And by the way, for anyone listening from Media Matters, you know, that puke website, Media Matters, that they wouldn't know a piece of truth if it hit them upside the head. The Soros-funded garbage website that's got the apologists for the communist takedown of the United States. And for anyone who dares to be a Christian or dares to be a pro-life person, get a clue. These writers, these so-called journalists, they're still wet behind the ears. They drag these people. Where do they get these people from? From under the Starbucks, local Starbucks? They drag them out and put them in front of a computer and say, "Here, you know, write something." For them to lie, to twist the facts, in my view anyway, to twist the facts, to protect Hillary Rodham Clinton and Billy Boy Rockefeller Clinton and Obama. To me, it's incredible. But see, Rhonda, you're right. It infuriates me to listen to the MSM mainstream media to say this is they're so angry, but it's all about the hard drives failing. Yeah, that's part of it, but they don't. Wait a second. So if I send an email to John Smith, you're telling me John Smith doesn't have that email? Now I understand. I understand that you might have sent that email to John Smith and 100 other people, or this goes for a lot of people involved in this. But put some shoe leather into this. As an investigator, you put shoe leather into an investigation. Get out from behind your dais there, Congress people. Start getting conduct a criminal investigation. And I'll tell you one thing: if I was part of this, like I said, and I'm not,
have to work. I mean, you can't ask them to do everything.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Both Lois Lerner and this IRS commissioner would be right now be sweating out a deposition or some sort of I would of course our Justice Department by Eric Holder. What kind of joke is that? And Rhonda does write this. She writes, "I've seen Fox News use this tactic when speaking about a gun incident, for example, talking about the official story. The media always reports the wrong kind of weapon, and even when clarification is made, the talking head keeps right on talking and using the incorrect name. They are just as bad as others. Look, they are. You're exactly correct. They've painted themselves in a corner here with no escape. And I do believe that, but I do believe it's by design. These are, as W said, they're firewalls being erected. Of course, they will just continue to lie. We'll never see them. Our government has lied so much for so long they can't speak without stepping all over themselves anymore. You've got that right. And you know, she writes that we nailed it for personally about the comment about personally going there and fixing it ourselves, and that's what it's going to take. She writes. You know, it's unfortunate, but folks, do you see a way out of this? Seriously, yeah. And there's a lot of braggadocious talk, you know, on the internet. Do you see any other way out of this? I want
a readjustment.
No, I mean
That's what the IMF
favorable.
calls it. No, I don't. I mean, there is no easy way out of this. We are going to go through literal hell on earth, and if we make it through, we're going to be met by, you know, more hell on earth. As I would guess that Christians will not be too welcome. Will not be welcome. Will not be appreciated. Will not be cared about. Actually, they'll be the opposite. They'll be looked upon as the plague, the enemy, the problem. Those who make it out.
Well, you know, at this point, I just want to go back to the eligibility issue and how long we fought. Who in the world is Barack Hussein Obama, Barry Soetoro? And it all, in my view, it all goes back to that moment in time when we had that opportunity to expose that we have a Manchurian candidate in office. If anyone can tell me with absolute certainty who Barack Hussein Obama / Barry Soetoro is, and with absolute documentation to back up their lies, their claims, their garbage. Look, as an investigator, okay, don't tell me that there's documentation out there that supports the fact that the guy that's sitting behind or sitting in the Oval Office and golfing 1,000 times a year, don't tell me that your documentation is authentic or authenticated. Two separate meanings there. But you've got a guy in there that you don't have a clue his background. Okay, so you know what? I demand an apology from anyone still calling themselves a Christian conservative or even merely a conservative. I demand an apology for all so-called birthers, in the name of all so-called birthers, pejorative term, because this man, as far as I can tell, is doing nothing but advancing an Islamist, communist, Marxist, yes, they do go together, Saudi agenda, an agenda for Saudi Arabia that benefits nobody else but Saudi Arabia and, of course, the Western intelligence backing the Saudi family, as well as the governments of the Middle East governments of Qatar or Qatar, whatever, however you pronounce that, and other Middle East interests. When you follow the trail, when you follow the breadcrumbs, go back. Who paid for his education? I shouldn't say who paid for it. Who got him in to the Ivy League schools? Didn't the Saudi finance minister exert influence to get him in? Who is this guy? So when you start connecting the dots, and it's easy to do, you'll find that it's not just about Obama, but the people around him. You could tie Obama to Brennan, is based on what Mr. Shipp said, this former CIA officer, is a Muslim. Folks,
I think based on what he said himself, what he has said himself, Brennan.
How do you feel about the most powerful and influential intelligence agency in the world, that being the CIA, being run by a Muslim. How do you feel about that? Yeah, you feel okay about that, Mr. Beck, Mr. Limbaugh, Mr. Hannity? Those people who said, "Oh, the eligibility issue is just a distraction." Oh, those nutty birthers. I'm sorry, but you know what? I'm really upset today. I'm upset about a number of things. And as far as I'm concerned, it's righteous anger. Everyone should be angry about what's going on. Here we are, we're facing the 4th of July. Mark Dice, who I don't particularly care for a number of reasons, although he does some pretty interesting work, the man on the street interviews. I think he could, anyway. He has, there's a video of what him going around asking people at the beach, some California beach, what the 4th of July is all about, why they're having celebrating the independence from the Nazis, independence from Mexico, independence from you name it, and no one gets it right, at least not on camera. They can't tell. I don't know. Yeah. So, but look, you've got the Obama Saudi Manchurian candidate, the Queen of Diamonds, the Night Stalker, Valerie Jarrett, who's running things, tied to Saudi Arabia.
That's pretty funny, the Night Stalker.
That's what she's called, Kevin Schiff. You missed that show. But Kevin Schiff, that's what she's termed, the Night Stalker. And people are surprised about Benghazi and Syria and ISIS. And folks, remember what ISIS is. Understand the satanic significance of ISIS. This is unbelievable. And to say that Obama's bona fides or background has no bearing, or that the eligibility is just a distraction, give me a break. That ranks right up there with the hard drives, mysteriously, where they all just cry. Everything just stuff happens sometimes, right? But Brennan, head of CIA, despicable man as far as I'm concerned. And you know what? You know what? Another thing that angers me. Where in the hell is George Bush at? I want to know where George Bush is at. Why isn't he talking?
He's retired.
Okay. He should be out there talking, saying, wait a minute. If he was any kind of a president, he should be saying, hold the phone a second here. I just handed the keys to the White House. What did I just do? Carter, yes. Well, God, good. Carter, never mind.
You mentioned Bill O'Reilly earlier. I want to play a clip.
Please. My head's going to explode if you do.
We're all over
that, right?
the place today because we didn't play news in 2 minutes during the break. We didn't cover the news we were supposed to cover, and I think I still have to upload this Bill O'Reilly clip.
Okay, yeah, well why do you do that?
Clips.
Well, wait a second. I just want to say something else. W, it reminded me of this when W was talking about the coding. Folks, watch the various news clips or various clips of the elected leaders, the elite. Watch them. In particular, if you go back, and this is worthy of some research, if you go back to Hillary Rodham Clinton's "What Difference Does It Make About Benghazi Green Puke-Colored Dress" interview, if you go back to that, just pay attention to her gestures. If you go back to the photographs, the official photographs of Obama and Biden in the White House, look at the certain ways that they're holding papers. Okay, now you might think that this, or they're holding their hands, or they're holding they're doing things, their movements, motions, and you might think that this is absolutely crazy. But if you look for patterns, repetitive patterns, in their words and in their actions, I think a case can be made that just like W found a code in a numerical sequence that was there 30 years previous, I think you'll find a way that these people are communicating with one another. Now, I know that sounds like really, bat poop crazy, but I'll tell you something. They're sending messages among themselves, just like they're doing on paper, they're doing in person. And even more blatantly, you'll see it. Nathan Leal talks about it. You'll see it in Hollywood performances. I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but you understand what I'm talking about, right? But there is a level of communication that we, the great unwashed, are not allowed to see. And you think, oh, come on.
And if you do figure it out, you're called, crazy, insane, nutty, conspiracy-minded, everything that they can think of. You know what I mean?
Sure, attack the messenger. Don't answer. See, they're too dignified to really address something like that. But then again, how do you really? It's a long conversation. But nonetheless, you understand where I'm coming from. There is a plan. There's a plan to take down this country. We see it too. The illegal immigration situation too, which I don't know, Mr. Beck. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself, Mr. Glenn Beck. I am here to tell you, okay, you and I, your producer and I have had conversations. Your staff and I have had conversations. I know your staff listens to this radio broadcast, listens to many of our guests, but Mr. Beck, you are dead wrong in your support, in your financial support of this illegal immigration or illegal alien influx on the southern border. You are dead wrong on this, sir. I respectfully say that. You are dead wrong. This is not a humanitarian crisis. Well, if it is, it certainly was caused from within. Cloward Piven, people are talking about it everywhere. People see it for what it is. But the fact of the matter is, by you using allocated funds, dedicated funds, or your fund, it doesn't even matter, but using your funds to help out the children. And by children, what's your cutoff? Because you see a lot of these young people coming over here have already been initiated into MS-13 and other various gangs. And they're here for a reason. Explain to me why, and see, you got to go back and you look. Oh, wait a second. What's the impetus for all of a sudden we have this influx of illegal aliens on our southern border? Explain to me, how did that happen all of a sudden? It didn't happen all of a sudden. It's not an accident. It's not some result of some unfortunate, unforeseen cosmic incident. It was planning stages for months, if not since 2 years ago.
They say it's going to boost the economy.
Who in their right mind is saying
I saw that on the news the other day when I was out of town. They were saying it's going to help the jobs. It's going to, more money will be spent in the community due to the fact that the extra people here will be having jobs and have money to spend, which we know there aren't enough jobs to go around as it is before you start bringing people over here. It's crazy.
My head's going to explode. But I'm going to tell you right now, because I've received a lot of emails about Mr. Beck, his decision. He's wrong.
His decision.
It's his decision. That's correct. It is his decision. But I'm going to tell you right now, aren't we all supposed to be on the same side? Now, it seems like I'm fragging Mr. Beck when we're supposed to be on the same side. But are we not supposed to say, wait a minute? Can we talk? Can we have a discussion here?
I'll tell you this. He did say something that bothered me. He talked about it's a humanitarian crisis. We need to take care of these people. Fine. But he also referred to Katrina and how that was a humanitarian crisis and people needed to be taken care of. My question is, did anybody ever hear the audio of him talking about the 9/11 victims' families and how much he hated them and how there were scumbags just like the people who were in New Orleans that didn't leave when they were told to evacuate, and these worthless people that were down there? I don't know if you guys ever heard that, But then to come back and to use that as an example of your good standing humanitarianism in this situation, that kind of struck me as
well.
I'm not holding it against him that because I know he did apologize for that, but
right.
to turn around and try to justify. I mean, maybe he said something nice about the Katrina victims, but the one thing I do remember is the name calling of the 9/11 victims' family, the Katrina victims.
Well, one thing that got me is what you caught about the FEMA camps. He never explained himself on that, and of course, did he not turn on the birth or on the eligibility issue?
In that morning of the Fox News, he was going to expose the FEMA camps. He was on Fox and Friends, and he was explaining to them this amount of information he found, this insane, they're going to be shocked when they see it. They're going to be, it's going to be an unbelievable show. You got to tune in. Well, come showtime, there's no proof any FEMA camps. And we're not going to talk about that tonight. What happened? And then you go to your own network, you don't explain that. That's kind of iffy.
And to me, okay, again,
I'm not saying he's bad inherently
right,
or doing anything.
Right.
It's just there's, little indicators that would make you a little cautious. And I don't know him personally, so I don't know what kind of person he really is.
Well, I've had some...
Or his intentions. We don't know what's in people's hearts.
No, we don't, and that's a very good point. We don't know what is in people's hearts, and this is not a personal attack by any stretch of the. No, this is an attack on. If it is an attack, this is taking him to task for a certain position, and we can have an intellectual discussion on this. But I think he's dead wrong. I think I really think he's either misinformed or deliberately. He's got a staff. We don't have a staff. He's got a staff. Hey, can you, my goodness. Look, I think
one thing he would agree on you with is something I've heard him say constantly is, you can agree to disagree.
Well, that's fine, and I think it should be brought out in the open. Look, he's author Brad Thor on. I know Brad Thor is a tremendous guy, a great author. We've had many conversations with Brad. Best-selling New York Times author of many books, and
we used to go out of town and get those books on CDs of his. And listen to them.
In fact, we should invite him on our program. And I've got a galley copy of his first book, which signed galley copy of his first book.
Aren't you special?
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
no, I know that's
it's a prized possession.
I remember when he sent that to you.
Yeah, but see, here's my whole thing with this. Right now. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you this. Who do you trust and who should you trust? And my answer to that is trust in God and trust in your own discernment. Don't even trust us. To the extent, no, hold on a minute, to the extent that you take what we say.
Trust but verifies.
There you go. Yeah, well, Reagan said that, but...
You take what information you hear and don't ever assume it's true no matter who it comes from. That's something, like I was telling W, I verified what he was talking about through different means. And it's not that I didn't believe him. It's that you have to, in order for peace of mind, in order to really understand what's happening in a situation, find out for yourself. And that's what's got us in so much trouble with the churches, with so many other situations we're in right now, is because people don't do the work. They don't do the efforts to figure out, or they don't have the mind set to say, well, this guy could be lying to me. I just want to make sure I'm not being hosed here. And that's why we are where we are.
Have you ever been betrayed by a friend?
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you, it hurts, doesn't it? You see, if the enemy, and folks, this is kind of what I'm getting at too. What MSNBC is giving you, for example. You know what Chris Matthews is saying. You know what Rachel Maddow is saying. So if they would disagree with you or say, wait a second, here is my expert on Benghazi, and give you a totally different spin, saying it was the innocence of Muslims that caused the attack, and also the failure of diplomatic security, you would expect that, correct? Absolutely, you'd expect that. The fallacy of creating either a straw man argument or changing the talking points, diverting the attention to somewhere else. So you expect that. But in the conservative area, and this is what Greg Jackson talks about a lot, and this is his book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, very interesting take on the conservatives or people who would be Christian conservatives. You don't expect to be deliberately betrayed by them. And one thing I'll say this, I have never, ever deliberately betrayed, at least not to my knowledge, anybody out there listening with the information I've provided or attempted to provide. I mean, I've certainly never deliberately set out to either betray or mislead or distort.
That's not
never
true.
Done that.
I remember one incident. We were on a case. You pretended that you had a camera in a tree to make somebody angry. You remember that?
Oh yeah, I do.
Maybe
but no, I'm talking
time,
about. No, I'm talking about here in the larger sense to a larger audience. That was. Sometimes, after sitting in a van for 3, 4, 5 days in a row, and you're just
that
in
a
yeah.
The guy ran out of our car like a bear when we were leaving, driving down the street, leaving the area, and you see this 250-pound guy with his arms up, screaming as he's running down the driveway to try and I don't know what he was trying to do. It was funny.
Well, I do have a videotape from 1994, I believe it is, of a guy with a chainsaw trying to saw my vehicle and saw it because I had taken.
You must not have tried too hard.
Well, I shouldn't say try. What he did was I had taken some videotape of him engaged in a very interesting thing. I'm just not even going to go there, but he saw my video camera, and I was in a lumber mill area, and he grabbed the chainsaw and he ran at my vehicle. And unfortunately, and this is something everyone should know. This is something that we all should have an exit plan. Okay, that applies to everything in your life. If you go into a restaurant, know where the exits are. If you go into a plane, make sure you know where the exits are, or whatever. Just know where the exits are and have an exit plan strategy. I made the most stupid mistake, and the next thing I know, and I know he saw me.
Yeah, didn't you get arrested when that was all said and done?
Yeah, well,
taken temporarily.
Yeah, I was.
I find that
for criminal trespass, which by the guy's cousin, who was a state police officer. And I said, well, okay, that's fine, but here's what we're going to do. If you want to do that, if you want to arrest me for criminal trespass, which you don't have a case for, because at the time, although I was on private property, it was improperly marked, here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit down, and I'm going to show you the video footage I've got. Because, you see, one thing that you can't do is take away my video footage. You'll have to kill me first. But let's all sit down and watch the video footage together.
Well, thank goodness that didn't happen today, because they would kill you.
Well, yeah. But he politely declined to press charges of criminal trespass, although his cousin was willing, the state police officer was willing to take me in on that. And I said, okay, we'll just... and then, of course, I had the actual aggravated assault with the chainsaw on video. And that kind of was a deciding factor as well. The cousin was a little bit hard-pressed to justify that.
I mean,
a little tale from the past.
I'm gonna say one more thing about the investigative business, because we could sit here and tell stories all day. But I remember you telling me how you were up in New York, you were working a case, and this guy was in crutches, and he had some profane T-shirt on, and he walked with crutches all the way up to the car, threw himself up against the side of the car, fell on the ground, and called the police and said you hit him.
Oh, yeah, and I was arrested.
And he pointed a gun at you, too. And then, you were arrested.
I was actually arrested.
But you had the videotape.
Yes, and I spent, I think, 3 hours between a pimp and a guy that was arrested for drunk and disorderly, went into a convenience store, and I think he either kicked and broke one of those slush machines or a pop thing, but there was stuff all. I mean, he was sticky. So on my right was a guy that was a drunk, sticky, stinky mess, and on the left was a pimp.
And the reason I brought that up is because what you said, have an exit plan, be aware that anything really can happen. I mean, the most unexpected things can happen, and you could be caught so off guard. You could be in an absolute right. It wouldn't look that way, for the time being.
Well, yeah, and one thing, let me just really give the audience kind of a real quick rundown on what happened with this guy in New York. It was in Tonawanda, and if you've ever been to Tonawanda, it was North Tonawanda. Not one of my favorite places.
My dad loves law enforcement officers. It's the only time I've ever heard him complain. Every time we go to Tonawanda, I can't stand the cops here.
Well, yeah. In fact, well, I'm not even going to go there.
It was just from that experience.
Well, yes, because here's the deal. I was actually conducting surveillance. It was 6:30 in the morning. I got there, and this was for a very high value, the defense of a very high value insurance claim. And this gentleman was supposed to be in a wheelchair, and he was actually suing the city. Or I'm giving too much out here. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. He was suing the city for I think $2.5 million, and everything was right. The trial was coming up. Everything was riding on this, and I'm into week number 3 of surveillance, and I got made. Okay, I got made early on, and I should have known. Because there were indicators, and I didn't pay attention. I did. I guess I did, but didn't care at that point. 3 weeks. I don't know. It was about that long. And frankly, people glamorize surveillance, but when you've got to pee into coffee cans. And,
yeah. Let me say this to anybody who would say that, because I've heard it all my life. Oh, it must be so exciting. Maybe the 10 minutes out of a whole day of sitting in a car, you see action.
It's sometimes it could be 8 hours of boredom followed by 10 seconds of sheer terror at times.
Just imagine driving around Buffalo all day with your partner sleeping in the passenger side.
Right. Keep it up. Well, no, getting back to this, because we're up, and then we're going to get to some hard stuff here, but just for the entertainment factor, since it's a Friday, no Thursday. I know. I was just kidding. This gentleman, $2.5 million, and everything was riding on this. The trial was like 6 days away. This was going to be a jury trial. This guy had eluded. In fact, I was the third investigator on the company on this guy, and I thought, hey, I was the big shot. I'm going to get this guy. So I poured my heart, my soul into this. And this was, and in fact, I had this set up really nice. I was sitting in a parking area near his home, and I had this at the time. Now you got to go back to the early '90s when those huge VHS cameras. They didn't have the small little cameras. Well, at the time I had
they were huge.
I had one of those, but I also had the state of the art, these new small cameras that you could actually mount on the windows of the vehicles. Okay, and it was really cool because you were able to get a 360-degree view, and it was remotely controlled, and I could sit in the back of the van, or I could sit in the front of the van. It really didn't matter. It was a cargo van that we had decked out with. It was a construction van. Long story, but anyway, we got made, or I got made. I was alone at this time, and the guy comes out of his house on crutches, dressed up. Okay, he had a KKK T-shirt on.
Yeah,
he's a white guy. He had a ski mask on. Now we're talking, if I recall correctly, June, July. I know it was oppressively warm out.
This is an allegedly injured person.
Right. That was suing the city for $2.5 million because he couldn't walk anymore. And he was, in fact, the other companies had him. People were taking a wheelchair all over the place. So anyway, so I see him come out of his house, and the rear camera is activated, and I've got backup camera, the regular camera, backup camera. Anyway, he comes to what I decided to do, knowing that I had, okay, this is, as soon as he walked out of the house, and I say on crutches, there was, according to the medical documentation, he was permitted to walk on crutches for like so many feet at any rate, although he had his wheelchair, supposed to be confined to a wheelchair. And that was part of his thing to the cops. But he comes out of his home on crutches wearing a Ku Klux Klan T-shirt, and I didn't even know they made those, a stocking mask on with sunglasses, and this bulge in his waistband. And I'm watching this thinking, should I go? Do you think I should back out of there and leave, or should I just see what happens next? And I'm the kind of guy that, I'll just wait until the last, the last dog is hung before I leave.
Yeah, sometimes it's a problem when it's turned into problems on a few occasions because of the way you handle it. And you hear me saying, Dad, let's go.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, you heard me tonight. You know how I get sometimes, okay? So just imagine that. Again, you're 3 weeks of blood, sweat, tears, and sweat, a lot of sweat.
Yeah.
And eating cold whatever.
Sitting in a box in the back of a hot van in the summer with no air conditioning.
Right. So anyway, he comes out, and he actually leans against the driver's side window of the van. I roll it down about 2 inches. And he... the first thing he did was spit into the van, which was nice. And then he said, "Don't run me over. Don't run me over.
Don't tase me, bro."
And then he falls. And he falls against a car and falls next to the surveillance van.
Now, you were documenting this.
Oh, yeah, it's all on tape. So I started laughing. Because what else are you going to do? Okay.
Leave.
Well, and then I see him kind of, he's kind of out of my view, and I know he's going for a gun, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is not going to end well. So I figured, okay, I got to move. I don't really want to get shot by this idiot, so I put it in reverse. I back out of the parking space, and I'm watching him now, and unfortunately, when I say 360 degrees, you have to manually use a remote to turn the camera to the proper angle, so you've got a certain field of vision. Anyway, I figured, okay, I've got to grab a video camera and put it on the dashboard to videotape his activities, which I did, but that allowed enough time where he got up, and I could see him going for a weapon. I'm thinking, oh, this is not going to be good, but he threw the crutches and starts running after me. Now, I'm getting this on tape, and I don't think he could see the camera, but I'm going in reverse about 60 miles an hour now by this point, down a one-way street, the wrong way.
Running from a handicapped guy.
Running from a guy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then what does he do? He falls in the middle of the road. Well, at this time, a neighbor comes out. It goes over to attend to him. And he is saying, oh, the guy just ran me over. The guy just ran me over. Well, she sees me and calls the police, calls the fire department. I mean, there were fire trucks there. There were ambulances, cops, everything. Okay, well, the man, now he had if I recall correctly, he did have a concealed weapons permit. But nonetheless, no shots were fired. Nothing happened. But I figured, okay, what would you do, ladies and gentlemen, at this point? What would you do if you were me? Well, I decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go down to the police station.
File charges, right?
No, not at all. Just let them know what happened and show them the video.
See, I thought you got picked up. I never knew you went down there voluntarily.
Oh, no, that was another time I got picked up.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a whole nother time. But so I went down there, and I went to the desk, and the guy looks at me and says, are you the guy in that van? I said, yeah, it's me. And I showed my identification, and I said, I've got a videotape here for you to look at. And he comes around the bench, and he said, let me see your ID. And I showed it. And he said, okay, Mr. Hagmann, you're under arrest. You got the right to remain silent. So he's reading me my rights. I'm saying, wait a minute. Whoa, hold on a minute here.
I wish I had that on tape.
Yeah, and the next thing I know, I'm in cuffs. And I said, well, you're making a mistake here. You just look at the video. So to make a long story short, they took this guy to the hospital. I mean, there were doctors working on him, and X-rays.
That's one of the biggest reasons I couldn't stand that work, especially in New York State, is you would catch somebody red-handed committing fraud, and it would still be almost a statistical impossibility to get them to go to jail. I couldn't stand that.
Yeah, well, and I'll close it up. But anyway, let me just finish this. I'll just say this. After the police looked at the videos, they brought the detectives in to look at the videos, and miraculously, and this is something I should add here, the stocking cap and the Ku Klux Klan T-shirt, they disappeared from the time that I left and the police came. So when he was taken to the hospital, none of that was on him, and so was the gun. The gun was gone too. So when they took him to the hospital, all of that was gone. So
he wasn't a complete idiot.
Yeah, which is interesting. So when the detectives looked at the video and they were laughing hysterically, but this brought the city, my client, the actual head of the city. I mean, he got involved. There were so many people involved in this. The guy was assuming. In fact, he did file a lawsuit. I had to notify my insurance carrier. All
That's
of this
crazy.
was bogus stuff. I mean, this thing went on.
That
for
takes a lot of,
Yeah, and I come home. My wife says, "Hi, how was your day, honey?" And it's like, oh man, just shoot me now. But anyway. And I'll just end it with this, and you can take 2 minutes. Remember, since we're going back memory lane, the time it wasn't in North Tonawanda, where I left you with reckless abandon as you were caught stealing someone's garbage, and you were running down the road.
That was in Lockport.
Or Lockport, okay.
And that was a cop. That we took we took a cop's garbage.
Yeah, that's a long story.
And I'm walking down the street. First of all, we went and got garbage, and it was dark still in the morning. We went there and both got garbage.
It's called trash archaeology.
And they put more out after we took some. So we went back there, and it was light out. And we were thinking of the best way to do this without drawing attention. And I said, I'll just walk down the street calmly, and I'll just stick my hand out and grab the bag.
and I'll pick you up.
The second my hand touched the bag, I heard, "Hey!" I just took the bag and ran as fast as I could.
All I saw was the heels of his shoes, his elbows,
the
and his
person didn't
bag
know what to
swinging.
say. They're like, they took my garbage.
There were so many people, and he's running down the road with a garbage bag, hopping over bushes.
What do you want me to do? Bring it back to the guy?
And I couldn't. And yeah, it was a cop. It was a cop, and I'm thinking, oh man. So
that was funny.
Again, I back up.
You know what was in the garbage? Nothing usable.
No, but you know what? I still have from the video.
Yeah, I think I say from the garbage bag.
No, I have video of what was or photographic documentation of what was in the garbage bag. Folks, the definition of patience is trying to reassemble a shredded document with a crosscut shredder. Have you ever done that? Have you ever gone into a bag and tried to reassemble shredded material, and to see what's on there? If you've never done that, then you've got no idea.
Full of coffee grounds and cat litter, and you got gloves on. I mean, that was fun.
Yeah, we had to take it and we bring it back as sanitized as possible to your office, and you sit there like a jigsaw puzzle putting together the document.
Nothing usable in any of the bags. All that effort.
That's right.
You'd think it was wasted, but it wasn't.
Yeah, and that ends our tour down, and we've got probably enough stories to go for days because, there have been gun incidents. There have been, the times that I've been arrested, never charged obviously, but arrested because of misunderstandings or hey, he's peeking in my windows or which is not true, and things do happen.
It could appear that way.
It could appear that way, of course, but
I do have a funny story I will save for another day, and it had nothing to do with law enforcement or police, but it was funny. I've never seen anything like it. in all my, what am I, 31 now? So all my 25 years of working.
Just tell me what it was.
The bug.
Oh, don't go there.
That was funny.
I don't like creepy crawly things on my back, and I
just
don't
imagine doing a stakeout on a man who's sitting on his porch across the street, and you're in the woods, and all of a sudden, I was like 10 feet behind him.
It was a jungle.
I was 10 feet behind you. It was like in the Finger Lakes.
We were in like a swamp. I don't know. It was a jungle. They had bugs the size of Volkswagen.
All I said to you was, "Don't move." I was going to come get the bug off your back. He starts trying to run away from his shirt. Now the guy.
I was trying to take my shirt off.
No, you were running. You were running from your back. I mean, you were trying to run away from your back. Is what it looked like. It was very funny. But the guy across the street that we were doing surveillance on, he noticed it too.
Yeah, well,
that was interesting. All over a big moth, I think.
No, it was one of those tarantulas. I'm sure it was. That's my story. I'm sticking to it, folks. I'm sticking to that. Yeah, that wasn't. There's some funny things happened to you.
Had to go down memory lane to get our heads screwed on straight again.
I guess so. Folks, you're listening to a very disjointed edition of the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this, the 26th day of June 2014. We had the first 2 hours. We had Debbie join us, of course, and we did talk about the IRS. We talked about Benghazi. We talked about there was some righteous anger there as well, I believe. A number of things. We also made the announcement that we will have W on July 3rd. That show is going to be only for
also,
yeah.
Paul McGuire will be on tomorrow.
I do Paul McGuire tomorrow night, which don't miss that. He's got some information tomorrow that's going to blow your socks off. And Saturday, we are beginning a Saturday program, the Weekend Vigilante, and the Hagmann and Hagmann report teams up, 8 to 11, same time. Sheila Zielinski, God bless her. She is a tenacious researcher, just a great person. Yeah, folks, you're getting more bang for your buck with that.
So all those people who, when we take breaks, say they were having withdrawals and they missed us, we expect to see you there on Saturdays.
That's right. And if I have my way, perhaps we'll do Sunday and twice on Sunday, right? Folks, we're going to be right back after we take this message.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the third and final hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Thursday, June 26, 2014. This month and this year have just been flying by. It will be July and then fall before we know it. So be aware and
how many
be
days
happy
Christmas?
And grateful for the time that we do have now in relative peace and safety, because it's not going to last.
Joe, and ladies and gentlemen, this is one thing that I've come to learn after this week for various reasons. Every day that we have is a gift. And if you wake up in the morning and you can reach over and touch your loved one, you feel their presence there. That is, or in my case, if you walk up from the den and
when's the last time you slept in bed? I mean, it's not because you don't want to, and he's got issues with his back and stuff, and he'll sleep on the kitchen table and the garage floor. I mean, you never know where you might find him sleeping.
Yeah, well, it's you do what you got to do, but the fact is this, and I just want everyone to really appreciate what you have. Joe, what you said is absolutely right on the money. Please enjoy. Look at your children if you have young children. Look at your parents. Just relish in the blessings that we do have, because there will come a time when all of us will be stressed to the point of stretched like a rubber band, or wound up like a watch you can buy down on Canal Street, or in that lower part of Manhattan or Times Square, wound up so tight. Okay, the fake Rolexes, what we need to do is we really need to enjoy the time we have, to relish in the warmth and affection of our loved ones. We need to tell them how much we appreciate them, because I'm sure we don't do that. We should right now. We need to mend any broken fences, because whether or not the end of the world as we know it happens a month from now, tonight might be your last night walking this earth or sleeping in your bed for reasons that you never saw coming. So please, take a moment and tell your loved ones, how much you care. You need to do that. You need to do that anyway. So, anyway, okay, we've got a lot of other stuff to cover.
Now that we have 45 minutes left in the show, let's actually get to the news. No, we did. I think we did a lot of preparation for the news today, which it's funny that it didn't work out because I don't know if you guys ever had you don't feel like you really want to get into some of these things because it's just repetitive, it seems, or it's just a different twist on the same kind of story. That's how I kind of felt earlier. And I wasn't avoiding getting into this stuff. It just didn't. We just didn't get into it. I've been reading for the last 24 hours. I've been reading these PDF documents from the IMF, and it's depressing.
Well, I'll make a confession to you this morning, and folks, I'm not proud of this, but I sat at my computer desk in my office, and I sat there probably for a good 45 minutes. I looked at a blank white piece of paper, or the blank screen with the Word document open with no words on it. Well, actually, it was bracketed for the title, and then my byline and the blinking cursor where the first paragraph should be. And I'm thinking, what more can I possibly write in the topic? And I've got five or six columns going right now in different stages of completion. But at some point, you just say, what more can be said? But you know what? I'm not sure if I have the license to identify the person who told me this, so I'm not going to identify the person who told me this, but this individual, again, and if this person wants to identify themselves as being the person who told me this, that's fine. But this person was having breakfast this morning, and as he was looking through his emails, this person is thousands of miles away from us. It's still in the United States, but a long way away. And as he was going through his emails, the waitress, a very common area, a very common destination for this person, this lunch, dinner, whatever, to the extent where he knows the waitresses and the waitresses know him, at least on a casual level. You know what I'm talking about, as a regular customer. And occasionally, the conversation, or the waitress might hear or see something that's being worked on and make a comment. Well, this is apparently a rather young, uninformed waitress who said, "Oh, you working on or you looking at something about Benghazi?" And he replied in the affirmative, "Yeah." And she said, "Now this is probably one of those people, the waitress, and this is not to be mean about this, but doesn't know, probably would not know what when the War of 1812 was fought necessarily. Not a luminary in history, not a literary giant certainly, or not a historical buff or history buff." But she told him, she said, what happened there, that was the start of war. And she told him, as he related to me, she told him, pretty much gave him a nice summation of everything we've been saying. And Alan West just said, and Michael Reagan had said in Building on the Kernel of Truth, and kind of gave that account to him, that it was criminal. It's criminal. Now, the reason I brought that up is because I think everyone should congratulate. I mean, each one of you listening should really accept congratulations, because you're making a difference among the population of this country. You're talking about this. You're saying the right things. The word is getting out about, in this particular case, about Benghazi. You're making it more difficult for these criminals to hide their actions. It's kind of like the mob scene, perhaps back in the 60s, we'll say 50s and 60s, where everyone knew who the local mobster was. But that only happened after a period of information sharing and saying, hey, that guy's part of the mob or whatever. Same thing taking place today. Now the mobsters in government are being identified. We're making a difference. We are making a difference. We are making a difference. And that's because of you guys. You're making the difference. So congratulations. We're going to keep them on the run. We're going to hold their feet to the fire. We're you know what? If we go down, at least in my case, I'm going to go down fighting to the last breath. If not for me and for my family, for my children and their children. Wouldn't that be what God would want all of us to do? I don't know. Maybe your calling is different. But the fact is we're making a difference. And God bless each and every one of you for that.
All right, let's get into some news, as we have a whole bunch of news that we're not going to get to cover all of it, which is okay. But we're going to play some sound clips here. Let me see if this uploaded properly.
Yeah, let's get to let's do it. Let's prioritize it, kind of like a triage thing. Let's go for the,
we have
the most important one.
News on Miriam Carey. The State Department has, not Miriam Carey, I'm sorry, the lady in Sudan.
I don't know where that came from. Miriam Ibrahim.
Yeah, her. And we have an audio clip from the State Department here. She was apparently released, okay? And now she has been re-arrested. Here's what the State Department said.
Actually did say. Yes.
Yeah, on Sudan, yesterday you told us the Sudanese government had told you that Ibrahim had been briefly detained but subsequently released, yes. And that she had not been arrested. Mm-hmm. Her lawyer told us that she had been arrested, that he was at the prison, that he was at the police station with her. We quote him today as saying that she's been charged with forging a South Sudanese passport, or producing a forged document.
So I do have an update for you that explains the discrepancy in statements.
And I'm particularly keen to know whether the U.S. And South Sudanese, but you may only be able to speak for the U.S. Ambassadors or envoys had been summoned by the Sudanese Foreign Ministry over this.
Yeah, so midday yesterday when we talked, she had not been arrested at the airport. Subsequent to the briefing, timing is often very important here, the family was taken to a police station for further questioning, where police subsequently rearrested her on charges related to her travel documents. She has been held since then at the police station. Her family is with her. She is in the custody of the Sudanese police while the issues related to her their travel documents, are sorted out. Embassy staff have been in frequent contact with the family, our lawyer and its lawyers, and have provided needed supplies to the family while she's been in the custody of the police, so been able to visit her and give her something she needs. The government of Sudan has assured us of the family's safety. Obviously, that's of utmost importance to us. We will continue monitoring the situation and discussing it with them. Finally, at the request of the government of Sudan, our chargé d'affaires met today with the Sudanese Foreign Ministry to discuss the case. He reaffirmed our concern that the family should be allowed to depart swiftly from Sudan, that we would work on that with them. You are right, I cannot speak for the South Sudanese government. Let me see if I have any other updates. And to the best of our knowledge, these charges aren't related in any way to the previous case. They are related to her travel documents.
So they're not related to her being a Christian, which was the original charge.
Of course not, right?
Anything to downplay or get away from the truth of what's going on in this nation and in this world, especially what has been created by this nation, the constant state of unrest and chaos and slaughter of Christians all across the Mideastern world, started by our involvement through the CIA. I actually have a report on this today. I have a few reports on this, actually. We have chaos by design in Iraq. We have, and these are just headlines, we'll get into the actual reports. Phantom report, compromised CIA spies, excuse me while this page loads, in Iraq for years, being reported today. U.S. military advisors arriving in Iraq better be careful who they talk and where they go. Their Iraqi allies will almost certainly be spying on them. According to 3 current and former CIA officers, they waged, with close ties to Iran, they waged an aggressive campaign against the spying agency. And they said that U.S. security personnel have been in the country for several years. They cover us like a blanket, says former CIA agent John McGuire, who was a deputy CIA station chief in Iraq in 2004 and maintains widespread contacts there as an oil business consultant. And it goes on to explain what they would do, how they would conduct their activities, how they would instigate things, how they would get out of situations. But this is confirming what we already knew, that there have been CIA operatives working under the cover of darkness, even to the military, our military that's over there fighting, not knowing what's going on, and explained how we were at an EMP event for the book, 1 second after, it was a conference, and we sat next to a lady who explained to us that her son was over in the Middle East and he was in the CIA, and we wouldn't see the fruits of his labor for a few years, and we had no idea what she was talking about. Well, we do now.
Now we do. Right on.
The White House today requests $500 million for aid in the Syrian rebels' cause.
Right. Well,
$500 million more.
500, exactly. And that, folks, is the overt request. In other words, that's not the black ops money that's already been funneled to the ISIS group. And
over $65.8 billion has been spent overseas operations approved by the Pentagon and State Departments in aid in different conflicts in the Middle East, not our military aid. It's aid to people in the Middle East.
Think about that amount and what it does to rearrange the power structure in the Middle East. I do want to hit this real quick. Steve Quayle had alerted me to this. In fact, it's rather new. It appears to be having just been posted at 8:32 p.m. Eastern Time today with a photograph. Now, look, I can't guarantee the authenticity of the photographs or the photograph, but this posted on IntelliHub, this civilian intelligence agency, folks. That's IntelliHub.com. A United Nations weapons enforcement vehicle was recently spotted in the U.S. Some fear martial law.
Did you say United Nations enforcement vehicle?
Enforcement vehicle.
I saw a video on YouTube that was taken by a private citizen. I don't know how I came across this, but they were in Georgia. They were driving from south to north on a family trip, and they videotaped semi-trucks, carrier trucks, that had UN trucks on top. They were carrying UN trucks, armored UN trucks. And there was like 3 or 4, each carrying 2.
Can you see my screen here if I move my screen?
Let's see.
Did it look like that?
I got to come a little. Yeah, that's exactly what it looked like. Yep. Actually, I think the other ones might not have looked as militarized as that one does.
All right. Well,
but they were white. They were kind of more boxy, but they looked new, and they said UN in big black letters on the side of the white truck.
UN police on the back. What I'm looking at, folks, is a photograph posted on, or an image posted on IntelliHub of what looks like it's a cross between a Humvee and I don't know,
an
Humvee. MRAP. Okay, yeah, I suppose. UN in capital letters, and then smaller capital letters right afterwards, police. It's light in color, and on the front quarter panel, at least on the driver's side, it says weapons enforcement. And this was reportedly, this photograph was reportedly taken from the Kentucky-Tennessee border area, and it references a recent posting on First Southern Brigade's Facebook page. Tells it all. Now, the question is, of course, look, anyone can Photoshop anything and put it up there, and so can we guarantee the authenticity of this image? Of course not. But would it surprise anyone? Certainly, I don't think it should. But if this is the case, if we have UN vehicles being transported and being operated on American streets, you've got to ask yourself, what is going on? Weapons enforcement? Excuse me? So, just like the FEMA shelters down at the southern border for the illegal aliens that were set up months far in advance of this incursion down south. Now we've got this coming. Is this a harbinger of things to come? I do suspect it is. So I just want to give you a heads up, folks. Look, if they're coming for your weapons, they're coming for you. End of story. And it's going to be a bloody mess if that does happen. Again, I can't guarantee the authenticity of it. I'm just telling you what is being reported. The photograph looks convincing, and once again, is it authentic? I don't know. But would it surprise you?
Not at all. I want to play this audio clip. Bill O'Reilly. Corrupt liberal media is subverting American democracy.
Thanks for watching us tonight. Subverting American democracy. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. You may remember New Jersey Governor Chris Christie being pounded by the national media for a controversy on the George Washington Bridge. A grand jury is investigating whether members of Mr. Christie's staff sabotaged traffic on the bridge to get revenge on a political opponent. The story is valid, and the network news went wild with it, devoting 112 minutes to the situation in the first week, 112 minutes. But when the VA scandal story broke, there was no coverage on the nightly network news broadcast for almost 2 weeks. No coverage. When the lost IRS email story broke, just 3.5 minutes combined on all the network newscasts. Unbelievable. That is a news blackout. On the newspaper front, the big three liberal papers, the New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, printed 56 stories and commentaries about Governor Christie in the first week. 56. First week of the VA scandal, 2 stories. First week of the IRS scandal, 3 stories. You want media bias? There it is. Beyond a reasonable doubt. So, if James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin were with us today, they'd be the lead guests on The Factor this evening. Because those men envisioned a fair press in America, a media that would inform the people, giving them honest information so they could make educated votes. But that's not what we have today. And that corruption in the media is greatly harming this nation. Again, there's no question about it. There's no question the major national media in America is trying to protect President Obama and will promote the candidacy of Hillary Clinton. For informed Americans, the blatant partisanship doesn't have much of effect. But for the 50% of us who do not pay attention, who do not know very much about their country, media bias is devastating. Because once people think that a person is bad or good, that impression usually remains. For example, there are a whole lot of Americans who don't like me. I know it's unbelievable. They don't like me. But when we ask them why, they don't really know. They've heard things. Maybe Whoopi Goldberg.
I got a list.
Maybe they heard you.
I got a list.
He talks about the subverting liberal media, subverting American democracy.
Wait a second.
What he's doing is more dangerous than what they are doing, because they are open about their agenda. They say what they want to do. They want, to destroy capitalism. They want to destroy marriage. They want to destroy morals and values, biblical values. But see, what Bill O'Reilly does is pretends he is a white knight fighting against this corruption, fighting against it. Where was he on the birther issue?
Oh, he was calling us crazy.
The only reason he's mentioning anything about these scandals is because he is being told to by his editor, or it was approved because it's something to fill time or distract from the real issues here. If the mainstream media, especially the right, conservative, whatever you want to call it, media, was truly honest and carried that with them on the air, imagine the change in the perception of Americans.
Well,
that would take place.
As one thing Rush Limbaugh did say is words mean things, and that
was an original thought.
Oh, well, anyway, American democracy. We're not a democracy.
No.
Now, perhaps that was said in without any malice intended, but I think you look. We know what Tavistock Institute has taught about neuro-linguistic programming. If you start using improper terminology to describe our country, that being a democracy instead of a constitutional republic or a representative republic, whatever you want to use, I prefer constitutional republic, to describe it accurately, then you're starting off in it being misleading. So what more can you say about that than just that?
I mean, it just makes me aggravated to see, this guy is one of the biggest, what would you call it, a shill when it comes to 9/11, when it comes to any issue that really matters that could affect change. I remember he had a son of a 9/11 fireman who's a victim, and they were muting his microphone during the broadcast because they didn't want him to express his point of view about what really happened. He talked over him, he yelled at him, and this is just one episode that was kind of went viral. Now you remember the video of him swearing and screaming, "Oh, I'll write it myself."
That was kind of we'll do it live.
I mean, that's probably what his person. He's probably high strung and mean like that.
Well, I'm high strung too, but
and mean sometimes. But
yeah, sometimes I can be mean.
It's not.
I do want to address something because this is consistent with Bill O'Reilly, a friend. I consider him a friend. I mean, I respect him.
Who? Bill O'Reilly?
No. Somebody emailed me and said, "Why so much on back bashing?"
We can have all of 5 minutes.
Well, you know what I mean. Look, he writes. Look, he said, "You keep saying it's a discussion, but since you don't have Glenn Beck present, it's a one-sided conversation." Absolutely true. You clearly stated your position, so why are you keep spending time on this? Here's why, and I'm going to answer you publicly. I'm not going to say who this is, but again, I consider him. I respect his opinion. The emailer. Here's why. The threat by people within our inner circle, and the betrayal that we are about to experience by those very people within the inner circle, by the people we trust, is more dangerous than the threat we know about or the threat we're prepared to face. So that's why, because there are many, many, many people who haven't heard about whether it was Glenn Beck or Bill O'Reilly. They haven't heard about their positions on certain matters, including and especially Mr. Beck. You're right, though, emailer. This is a one-sided conversation. So much time is spent because I want to drive home the point of betrayal. If you have food, weapons, storage of weapons, cash, whatever, in your house, the robberies, when I worked with Part of Justice back in the 90s, the robberies that were committed against people with valuables in their home, in particular, cash and other, in this case, ill-gotten gains, were actually conducted, the robberies and burglaries were conducted 99% of the time by the very people that they trusted and who knew that they had money or things of value in their home. It's going to be exponentially worse now. So if we put our trust in someone erroneously or with bad judgment, folks, that could be a death sentence for all of us, for you, for anyone who does this. So please be very judicious with respect to who you tell what to. You might want to reconsider telling your neighbor, "Hey, I've got a year's worth of food, stashed away in the event of a zombie apocalypse." Or
they'll be the first ones coming to take your life when they're starving.
correct. I mean, any Twilight Zone episode back in the 50s and 60s, you could see, you get my drift. So it's the enemy that we don't know is our or the deceiver, the person who is with intent to deceive. Now, I'm not saying that's the case here. I'm saying that it sure feels that way. And yet, you know what? To be fair to this emailer, what I will do, to be fair, is I will reach out to Mr. Beck and I'll ask him on this to either come on, or if we can discuss this even off air, and I'll do what I can. But look, I mean,
we don't
really
hold any bad feelings, towards him, and I would not mind talking with him, to understand better, what exactly it is he's trying to accomplish or say, and maybe even ask some questions about previous statements that were made, and understanding, like I said, what people's hearts.
Exactly.
By talking with him, if the best of our ability, you might be able to find out.
Well, and again, the reason is not the man; it's the message. It's not, and the message is, and the lesson is, look, be very, very, very careful when you start.
I mean, he's been right on so many things. At the same time, what did W say? This information is built on truth, and that's the most dangerous issue, because you have 95% truth in your message, but it's that 5% of lies that are going to screw up people, and that they'll never recover from and never know. So, I mean, we have to be careful. We have to be vigilant. We have to, as I said, make sure that we are verifying information for ourselves.
That's right, and it's always good to remind people. Look, there are people that are out there. They're professional disinformation agents. Look, I don't know who they are. There are people out there that are intentional disinformation agents. I don't know who they are personally. That is, but the fact of the matter is, we have to be aware, and we have to have make sure our spidey senses are working. And if there is in fact an agenda here that's not consistent with one that you feel comfortable with, identify it and stay away from it. So, or at least be aware of it and understand what's going on here. Other news, Joe. My goodness, 15 minutes left of the show.
Yeah, my goodness is right. All right, if we only had a few minutes, what would we play? I've uploaded so many audios and have so many stories that now we're going to see which ones are... Let me
give you this one, because this kind of, if you don't mind, while you're looking here, this was 10 facts about the SWATification of America that everyone should know. The number of SWAT team raids in the U.S. every year now, more than 25 times higher than it was back in 1980. And I think this is important to understand, because what we're seeing, Radley Balko had written The Rise of the Warrior Cop. If you haven't read that book, it's pretty interesting at how he ties the drug war as the basis for this. But just really quickly here, I'm going to give you these 10 points. I'm going to shut up. In 1980, there were approximately 3,000 SWAT raids in the United States. Now there are more than 80,000 SWAT raids per year in this country. In 79% of the time, SWAT teams are deployed to private homes. That's 80% of the time, roughly, SWAT teams are deployed to private homes. 50% of the time, half the time, the victims of SWAT raids are either black or Latino. What does that tell you? I don't know. Half the time they're either black or Latino. Is that consistent with the demographics? I don't. In 65% of SWAT deployments, a battering ram, boot, or some sort of explosive device is used to gain forced entry into the home. And folks, a lot of times a simple knock on the door could take care of it. And 65% is a pretty high rate of usage there. 62% of all SWAT raids involve a search for drugs. I think that's a very important fact, because again, the drug war is in fact the springboard for which a lot of these, and the justification for which a lot of this paramilitarization of our police forces are responsible. in at least 30% of all SWAT raids, no contraband of any kind is found by police. So you've got over a third where they come out empty-handed. I wish I could say it would be, that's a pretty high percentage. Frankly, in my experience, I've never been a part of a SWAT team, but I've been a part of, being used as an operational asset when the FBI comes in, or the FBI along with the police department comes in, and after a controlled buy or controlled situation, 100% of the time, in my experience, there was always something that was always an arrest made or charges filed. 7, in cases where it is suspected that there was a weapon in the home, only 35% of the time were weapons found. More than 100 American families have had their homes raided by SWAT teams every single day. That bears repeating. More than 100 American families have had their homes raided by SWAT teams every single day. Number 9, only 7% of all SWAT deployments are for hostage, barricade, or active shooter scenarios. So 93% are situations that don't involve emergency situations or life-threatening situations, which means to me that over 90% of the time there could be other alternatives rather than SWAT raids. And number 10, even small towns are getting SWAT teams now. 30 years ago, 25.6% of communities with populations between 25 and 50,000 people had a SWAT team. Now that number has increased to 80%. And here's the deal. It's because of the military efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan that police forces all over the nation are being showered with billions of dollars worth of military equipment that's coming home from overseas. It's in Time magazine here recently, and of course, every single gift to the police departments has a price. So it's here's your AMRAP, here are your weapons. Now here's what we want from you, and that's how it is with municipal police departments all across the United States. There's always strings attached. This comes from endoftheamericandream.com. At least it was posted there, and that's how I got it. Joe?
All right. I don't know if you heard about this. This was an interesting headline I picked up just before the show. Head of fourth largest Albanian bank assassinated in broad daylight. Did you hear about this?
Yes.
Okay. It says that it was about 2 months ago when, in a shocking development in the otherwise sleepy tax evasion haven of Liechtenstein, the CEO of local bank Liechtenstein was murdered in the underground garage of the bank by a disgruntled former client. As readers may recall, the tragic event happened at a time when there were a spike in banker suicides, prompting us to wonder with the first open bank CEO murder, one wonders if there will be a change in the pattern. 2 months later, it appeared as if there was a vector of death indeed clinging when Reuters reported overnight the head of the fourth largest bank in Albania, Crendens, was murdered, shot at least 5 times as he entered his office in the capital of Tirana. And it goes on to state a story from witnesses, and it says this murderer was caught this time, and it was kind of complicated, but this is not a coincidence of the bankers being killed systematically, as we
that's right.
have seen, and it hasn't been happening lately, or at least hasn't been covered. If it has been,
no, it's just covered. It hasn't been covered, but it's covered up
to send a message for a little while for people. I don't know, or it is covered up. Yeah.
No, the number that we have right now, folks, is over 40 dead bankers.
Well, at the rate it was going, 2 months ago, you'd think it'd be 140. by now, but thank goodness it's not.
Well, and there are things that we don't know, but we don't know the things that we don't know, and I don't mean to sound like that recent or that's a politician, but one last thing here, and I think it's important, especially to close the program out, folks. Think about Dick Cheney's recent statement. Joe, did you hear, or do we have it?
I think I erased it, but yeah, he said that he was asked if we should expect another 9/11, and he replied, "Absolutely, we're going to see something even bigger than a 9/11."
Okay, and what did he make reference to? What
kind
of attack?
Nuclear bomb being smuggled into the country and blown up in a vehicle, I think.
All right.
Driving down in Washington, D.C., in the city.
Okay. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we still have unaccounted for nuclear weapons that are missing that we know. Okay, either missing or some say, well, one was blown up. Or
you've been telling me about the suitcase nukes that have been out and about for years now. I mean, you were telling me about those before I even understood what nuclear suitcases were.
Well, yeah, but it wouldn't be that, though. See, it would be something more, something larger and something more like the missing nuclear weapons, the warheads, that some say, well, they're in the hands of good guys, or they're in the hands of bad guys. We've accounted for them. No, we don't know where they are. Oh, one was detonated, one wasn't, safely detonated, one wasn't. A couple weren't, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, there's still a big question mark surrounding the missing nuclear weapons. And if you take that and you put that in the context of today's, the events of today, folks, listen to what these people are telling us. They're preparing us for something. They're preparing us for, I believe, they're preparing us for a potential nuclear bomb going off, being detonated. Now, is that who would do it? Is it a false flag or some bad guy? Okay. Well, obviously, either case, it'd be bad guys. But look, expect the unexpected. If I woke up in the morning to news, or if I got a phone call to news and something was detonated on the Beltway, would it surprise me? No, it wouldn't surprise me, of course. But they're looking for additional reasons to. I mean, what better time when the country's in turmoil anyway to increase the turmoil? And don't forget, where are they headed to? Where is our government, the elite of the elite, headed to? They're headed to Denver.
Absolutely, where their bunkers are.
So, wouldn't something like this give them the impetus to relocate and fend off any type of hostile attack from American citizens? Because can Washington, D.C., if you think about it, can the people there effectively repel? If Americans really got serious, really got angry, talk about marching on Washington. Washington is pretty exposed. Denver, it's the highest point. I mean, not the highest point, but it's mile high, and their offices, their cities, underground for continuity of government purposes. So, would it make sense to run, have the elite run everything from there? Of course, it would. Is this crazy talk? Well, you know what? It's 2014. 10 years ago, I would have said absolutely crazy talk. Not anymore. Not anymore. So all I'm saying is, I do believe that we are being prepared for a. We're being conditioned. We're being softened, mentally programmed.
Yeah, and as we pointed out, and W pointed out, the scandals that we are seeing are indeed scandals, but they are, and they would get any other, or in the past, I believe, would get these politicians or presidents, whatever position they hold, impeached.
Remember, Nixon, 3 articles of impeachment.
It is why this president is in office now, is because anytime anybody wants to bring up a legitimate scandal or a real problem that was caused by this president, all they have to do is say racist, and people just shut up.
Is that by
Yes,
design?
that's by design. And it's not that, there are some racist people out there. There are some people with bad intentions, with hate in their heart. But when you are not looking to maliciously just attack somebody because of their background or whatever race, and you're pointing out legitimate issues, that's like saying, I don't know, me stealing money from your wallet when you come to accuse me, calling you a, I don't know, marginalizing and calling you names,
Sure.
making you the victim or you the bad guy. It's so backwards and it's so mingled in the wrong ways that we are paralyzed. A lot of people are paralyzed, literally, because they don't know how to react. They say in their minds or in their hearts, "I'm not racist." Why are they? I don't want to be labeled a racist. I should shut up. Am I racist? I mean, it's the insecurities. It's the people need to understand that what is happening, and until people get a better understanding and figure out that this is all part of a plan, part of an agenda, that they don't even, the people who are saying you're racist don't even believe it in their own mind. They're just saying it as a tactic.
Some of the ways that are being used right now, and I'll end with this, to deceive us through words, through language, through in arguments, in exchanges. Accuse your opponent, for example, of doing what he is accusing you of doing, or something worse. Accuse that person of sliding down the slippery slope, which is done a lot. Hedge what you say, ignore all evidence, ignore the main point, attack the evidence, which undermines your case. Insist loudly on a minor point, which that goes to the Benghazi argument, the minor point being the diplomatic security issue. Make sweeping, glittering generalizations, obviously, is one way. Another way, oversimplifying an issue, raise nothing but objections. Rewrite history is a good thing to do. We see it happening now. Shift the burden of proof, just spin, use double talk, tell big lies, because people have a tendency to believe bigger lies. If you can believe this, then smaller lies, deny or defend any inconsistencies which you might be confronted with, and demonize the other person's side while sanitizing yours. Evade questions gracefully. All of these are ways that are being employed right now. And, of course, one of the things, too, is appeal to fear, and we get accused of that a lot. And it's not fear that we're not appealing to fear. We've got nothing to fear, because we're on the side of any Christian, true-born Christian knows that you've got nothing to fear.
Absolutely. In our closing moments here, I just want to report this. I don't know if you heard about the 3 Israeli children that were kidnapped. It has now come out that Hamas is behind the kidnappings, and the names of the Hamas terrorist responsibles have been released.
Can we really believe that, too? We have to question that.
That's the headline I just read, so I haven't verified it.
Yeah.
But that's been in the news, and people have been covering this, and they're wondering, why did these 3 kids get abducted all of a sudden out of the blue? And I thought that's where people all lived peacefully. As they say in the news media, the mainstream media, the Christians and the Muslims have lived there together peacefully for over 2,000 years, even though the Muslims haven't been around for 2,000 years, not even close to half the time.
Something wrong with that math.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Tomorrow, Paul McGuire, folks. Tomorrow night, Paul McGuire.
It's Friday. No.
Yeah. Tomorrow's Friday. Paul McGuire, and then, of course, on Saturday, our special weekend edition.
That's going to screw us
Weekend Vigilante. Nah, it's going to be great.
We're going to have to get used to that, the Saturday show every Saturday, because it will, at least for me, I'll think it's the wrong day, probably for the first month.
Yeah,
we do the show, but it'll be okay.
We'll keep you on the straight and narrow. God bless, folks. Thanks for listening tonight. Until tomorrow, just stay safe and just stay aware of your surroundings.
Have a good night, everyone.